Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Shutter Sport Podcast. Today we're live at the deadline, which is super exciting. Well, hopefully it'll be exciting. Not much has happened just quite yet, but today we're live for the NHL Trade Deadline. We're bringing you all the trades that have already happened, and then we'll head into, hopefully I'll be refreshing Elliot Friedman's Twitter here, basically, and we'll see if anything exciting happens at the deadline here. But before we get started, we would like to welcome our special guest, Jacob Ewing. He's here today with us.
What's up, everybody?
He's bringing us some Ottawa Senators knowledge and general hockey knowledge. And then, of course, we're joined by Clint Householder.
Hello, everybody.
Resident Kraken fan over here.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll see if he loses his mind live or anything.
I've warned them.
Yeah. Clint's disclaimed that if the Kraken make a bad move, we'll be hearing about it. So, yeah, basically we're going to go through all the trades that have happened so far. We've kind of split them up, dispersed them evenly, and then we'll see. So sorry. Max is in the chat already just trolling, so that's just awesome. He said that Nyes is headed to Seattle.
Well, yeah, that's definitely
true.
real. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to be grading each team so far, what they've done, and we'll grade their deadline, not exactly where we think they'll be come playoffs, but whether the deadline made sense for them. And then we will, again, break any trades as they happen. So we're live from 2 to 4 here, so hopefully as the deadline comes closer and closer, more moves are made. But okay, I need to literally ignore Max in the chat. This is just, he's bombarding. But yeah, that's the breakdown of what we're going to do. So why don't we hop right into it? Lots of teams to cover here. We've, of course, got Jacob, who's new, starting us off.
Yeah, let's
First
do
stream,
it.
and he's into it.
Let's do it. So we're starting off with Tampa Bay Lightning. Is that correct? Okay,
yeah.
so Tampa Bay, obviously, they're first in the Atlantic standings right now, tied with the Buffalo Sabres, one of the hottest teams. They've heated right up after the start of the season, and they haven't done a whole lot where, in comparison of years past, where this team has been good for so long now. Like, Tampa Bay has been the cream of the crop since the start of the 2020s, right? And normally they do make some moves to kind of acquire some middle six guys. The only thing that they did do, I believe, is the Corey Perry trade, where they get a guy, he's been to the Stanley Cup 6 times in the 2020s, 5 or maybe 5.
He's been a lot.
He always needed to do a whole lot, though. Like, they're really good, and they're also, I believe, they're limited for cap space as well, just because they have all these big names. Like Kucherov eats up a bunch. I'm sure Hedman does. So stable it up a little bit. Could also probably move up maybe to the third line if they really want. Like, I remember when Perry was on Edmonton making that cup run, like, he was up and down the lineup. Like, he's a guy that can kind of fill any role. Like, he's a veteran. Obviously could score goals. We've seen in the years past. So I don't mind it. Could they do something else? Potentially, but I think there's so much good mojo in this Lightning lineup right now that they really don't need to.
Yeah, you don't really need to make a big change. I saw earlier it was reported, like, last year they traded for Oliver Bjorkstrand from my Seattle Kraken. I heard his name was out there again. Like, they were looking to potentially move him to get an upgrade, but if they're not getting a good return on him there, then it doesn't make sense to shake up the mojo of the group. So just bringing a guy who's has some experience with the group is probably a decent move.
I like that experience.
We've got our first breaking trade here. It's not fully confirmed yet, but apparently momentum is building for the Braden Shen to New York Islanders.
I don't know how much, I don't know my thoughts on that. The Islanders, they are in a playoff spot right now in the Metro. I would have rather just scooped Connor Garland because he didn't go for too much. Like, we've got to see the return of what this Shen move is. He's a veteran. He's a great locker room presence. Good to have another center always. But I feel like I would have liked the Garland fit a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Connor Garland. Younger guy, obviously compared to Braden Shen.
Yeah.
He gets moved to Columbus. I think that's a great move. We'll get to
we'll get to that
later. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Too much.
Yeah. But okay, interesting. I mean, this Islanders team, I think the direction they're heading is up. Obviously, with Matthew Schaefer, you kind of have to build the team around his timeline.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if this happens, I know you said it wasn't official yet, Katie,
yeah.
but Braden Shen, I mean, as you said, locker room guy. So, kind of just maybe like a new potential leader of the team, kind of with Bo Horvat. So.
Yeah, and this might allow them to slide Cal Ritchie down, play Shen at the 2C, and then have Pajot as the 3C, which is actually pretty good center depth. I don't know if I'd pick them as a cup contender, but that definitely helps them out in the Metro Division when the East is completely wide open right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, going back to Tampa Bay as we were rudely interrupted. What would you guys, I guess, trade deadline grade? They didn't really do too much. They didn't need to do a ton, but...
Yeah, is it just A, B, C?
Yeah, well, so I've got a little tier list. So it's actually S, A, B, C, D. But
S, A, B, C, D, yeah. I'd say probably like B or C. Like they didn't need to do too much. I would maybe lean C because I think they paid a little bit high of a price for Perry, like a second rounder for like a depth guy. Like I don't know if that's the best value, but they didn't really need to do a lot. They didn't like shake up too much and mess up the chemistry or whatever.
Yeah. I could agree with that. I'll say C. Like obviously we've realized that the price at this deadline is so extremely high to acquire anybody.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that they had to give up a second round pick and LA is able to retain 50% of their salary, which is nice. But I mean I don't mind the pickup of Corey Perry. Like he's as I mentioned, a cup guy. He's gonna bring you make any contending team, just advance them even higher. So I don't mind C. I'd maybe lean a little bit to B, but
I'd go B.
I'll say C just because I'd like maybe just a little bit something else. But
Okay. Yeah, true. I think C maybe just because that's not going to be the game changer in the playoffs for them.
Exactly.
Like that's not going to make the difference. We've got first time chatter Julian Krasinski in the chat saying Marner to Toronto. So I'm sure that one's true. But yeah, okay. So with that, we go to the Buffalo Sabres now. They made two kind of big trades here. First of all, bringing in Logan Stanley and Luke Shen. Massive upgrade for their blue line. Well, not even upgrade, but addition if they're making a playoff run for the first time in what feels like forever.
Yeah.
They're going to need to upgrade that blue line, and I think those are two playoff guys, and they've got experience, obviously, coming from Winnipeg. And for that, they gave up Isak Rosen, Jacob Bryson, 2027 second round, and a conditional 2026 fourth. So not the worst haul to give up, honestly, for them. And then also they brought in Sam Carrick, and with that traded a 2026 third and sixth. So I think overall, I like what they did. They improved, and they didn't give up too much for it.
I think optics-wise, it's great for the Sabres to be going in. Like,
Yeah.
it really sucks that they missed out on Parayko. I think that would have been a great ad for them. But it's still, like, very good for a team who's missed the playoffs for, like, so many years in a row. It's great to be going in. I would push back a little bit on the return that they gave up. I'm higher on Isak Rosén. He has been dominant in the AHL over the past 4 years. He's, like, well over a point per game this season. And he got a cup of coffee in the NHL. He didn't have a great role, only playing in 16 games in a bit of a depth role, but he still was able to tally 7 points. Like, I think that's a good ad for Winnipeg. So I would push back on that it's not the biggest return to give up, but it's not detrimental with how many young guys they have.
Yeah, I think they've got a good group of young guys especially. And I agree with you. Like, they had to buy this year. Otherwise, it was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially since it's been so long. So I think, like, as far as what they had to do, they did it. And even if it was a good guy that they gave up as a prospect, they do have plenty.
Yeah.
No, I'm a big fan of this trade. Like, I think you mentioned Parayko coming into this roster. If they would have got Parayko, this D-core is probably the best in the league. Like, with Dahlin, Byram, Power, Samuelson, Kesselring, and then you add Logan Stanley, who their top four is pretty solidified, and what they need is a bottom pairing guy. And Logan Stanley is just there to kind of, be a presence, be able to be put on the ice in any situation, kind of get things done. Bigger guy, probably play the penalty kill. So I really like that pickup. And then Sam Carrick, just a depth center. Like, this team needs to go in right now. And yes, I get what you mentioned about the prospect they gave up in Isak Rosen, who he was 15th overall, maybe 4 seasons ago, about like that. So
I think 2021 first
yeah,
rounder.
so still lots of potential in him, but it's time to go now. Like, this team is young. They don't need like a lot of reinforcements coming up through their prospect pool. It's time to buy in now. The fans deserve a cup run, and this team is, I think, ready to go. I really like the depth pickups they got this deadline.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned how good their blue line is. What's interesting is they now have like 7 quality NHL defensemen, like with Shen and Stanley. So even like if someone gets hurt, they still have someone to slot back into the lineup. So it's always good to have that come playoff time, especially with the guys that kind of have some injury concerns on the back end. That's always great.
Yeah, where would you grade them? I think I'm looking at, like, it's got to be B or A for just the optics and just the fact that they were managed to buy at this deadline, honestly.
I would probably say B just because I'm a little bit higher on
you
Rosé,
are.
and I don't think it was I think it was a bit higher of a price to pay for some depth guys, but it's still great optics-wise to be going in here.
Okay, I'm a little higher. I'm going A.
Yeah.
I really like. I think the Buffalo Sabres, it's time to go, and they got, like, these names are names that other cup contenders would go after, just because when you're a contender, obviously your top 6 and your top 4 are probably already solidified on your offense and your defense, and so you need depth players, and I think that's exactly what they got. So
Yeah.
Let's outnumber Clint. Let's throw him an A here.
I've been vetoed.
Yep.
We'll talk about the next team that I have is the Detroit Red Wings, and I have a breaking Detroit Red Wings trade.
Oh.
It's a big one player-wise, stature, not talking about actual name, but Elmer Soderblom has been traded from Detroit to Pittsburgh
Wait,
for a
46
2026
seconds
third.
ago.
Yeah, I'm on that. I'm actually a big Elmer Soderblom fan. He's huge, and he has like very good hands for his size. He scored a beautiful between the legs goal back when he was in the World Juniors. I do understand trading him away for a third round pick. Like that's pretty good value for a guy. I think they took in the seventh like a couple years or like 4 or 5 years ago. So that's always like good to return that. Gives them another asset. And then the buying move that they made was trading for David Perron, who has experience with the group. He was part of the last playoff run that they tried to make, like at the end of the year when they were battling the Habs for those last playoff spots. It's a good ad. He has experience with the core. It's not like a needle mover. I don't think like this isn't going to be what gets them into the playoffs, but it's always good to add a veteran. And they only paid a fourth that becomes a third if they win a round, which especially now that you got a third for Soderblom, it really doesn't matter. So I'd probably say like a C move. Like it's not really a needle mover. I think it's good that they didn't pay an exorbitant price for like a center or something like that. If they get Thomas, like that's a guy you would trade a haul for. They have a lot of good prospects, but you don't want to pay those guys for like a Braden Shen or like a Nazem Kadri kind of fit there. So I like this deadline from Detroit.
Okay. I wonder if that Soderblom trade is just maybe get him off the books of the salary cap because they would get David Perron, who's a $4 million player or something like that. And maybe you're trying to clear in some cap space just to make a move.
They do have a ton of cap. I think they have
Okay,
the most
yeah.
cap of any like buying team.
Okay, I
so they
stand
didn't do
corrected,
they
yeah,
didn't do the
okay.
most. My
Sweet.
family's Wings fans, so I'm a little
All right,
tapped.
all right.
I think it's just Pittsburgh like the young talent, and when you get offered a third round pick for a guy you took in like the 6th or 7th round, then you're gonna take that.
Okay. I think he fits I mean, the Pens direction. Like, I'm sure we'll get to that team, but like, obviously, the presence of Malkin and Crosby, like, it's hard not to sell. There's such an awkward situation over there in Pittsburgh, but I think Soderblom kind of fits that dynamic of when they leave, there's gonna be lots of opportunities in that offensive core. So
Yeah. Plus, we'll talk about it later, but their last buying move, the Chinnikov one, was like great buying a young player. So I have some faith with this one as well.
Perfect. Yeah, not the busiest deadline for Detroit, but where would you put them?
I would say B, or B or C. I'm fine if we want to move it down because they didn't really do too much, but I would say B because I think they got better and they kind of got a better pick for Soderblom. So.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you a question, Clint. Do you think there's more to come for Detroit at this deadline potentially before the 3 o'clock?
I think like if they make a move, I think it'll be Thomas, opposed to anyone else. Like if they have a legit center punch of Larkin Thomas, then that's actually like a really good duo. They can convince themselves that they could make a run. Maybe they target a defenseman like Erasmus Ristolainen. Those would be my guesses. Yzerman's been pretty quiet most of the past couple deadlines.
Like they don't do anything.
They have not done anything the past couple of years since they sold like Bertuzzi a couple of years back. But Larkin was frustrated last year, so I could see that there being a push from the guys. Like we're in the third Atlantic spot right now. Like we should make a move. I just hope it's not like overpaying for a depth guy.
Okay. Yeah.
Fair enough. So what are we thinking, B or C here?
I'll go B.
Yeah, I'll go with that. That's good. All right. Looks like next up is the Montreal Canadiens. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Montreal, a team that has kind of exceeded all expectations and now find themselves in a playoff spot. And man, this team, as a Sens fan, Katie, I'm sure you can understand. Like this is scary because this team has turned around and their future is just set. So listen, it's hard for this team to kind of like. There's so much mojo going on with this Canadiens team right now. Where honestly, I don't feel like they need to make a move. Their name has been surrounding around a couple different players. The goaltending has been a question mark. Like, do you bring someone in? Obviously, Dobich and Montembeault, bit iffy at times, but also at times look fantastic. Very hit or miss. And then like just the offense is just so set for the future. Like you could argue that maybe yes, you bring in maybe a veteran guy, maybe early 30s, someone who can kind of be a leader on the team, but as well not ruin the future of the direction because this team is set for years. We'll see if they make a bigger move. I don't know if they've done much.
I don't
If
think they've made a
anything.
single
Yeah,
move.
I
I haven't
think
seen
they
a
have.
single one.
I know I saw Patrick Laine's name kind of a little bit around because obviously he's injured right now, so he's not impacting this lineup. And if this team wants to make a deep playoff run, which I don't know. Is the like obviously teams want to go far in the playoffs, but do you want to sacrifice maybe next season by making a move that you could regret by trying to go in all on this deadline, all on this year? Because this team will be maybe win a round or two this year in the playoffs too, maybe exceeding expectations. But I think this team is like if they stay exactly where they are today, they'll make a good run at the playoffs, and next year they'll be even better just by development reasons.
Yeah. I think if they're like if it's a move like we've talked about seeing like the price, like I'll talk about it with the Leafs, but like if they're paying a first round pick for Nick Wall, like that's a move you shouldn't make. I would have liked them to see. I would have liked to see them pull the trigger on Robert Thomas. Like I know Michael Hage is a very promising prospect, but at the end of the day, he's still a prospect, and every prospect is a shot in the it's a shot in the dark. If he pans out into 80% of Robert Thomas, like that's a huge success for where they picked him. We obviously don't know what else was in the package that St. Louis wanted, but I would have liked to see them make that deal. I think Laine's name is out there in a reported like Kadri trade, like
I saw that.
the salary going back for that. I would like the Kadri addition. I think they could if they bolster up the 2C. I think they could actually make a deep run this playoffs. And I think Kadri would be a great fit for that. He wants out of Calgary. It's been reported. He is on the older side, and his contract could age not the greatest. But when you're underpaying Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky, you can afford to, and even Hudson as well, you can afford to overpay one guy that's going to fill a need. So I would like to see them make a move like that. But if they don't, it's not the end of the world. And as long as they don't overpay for like a depth piece, it's not hard. It's not hurting the future of their core there.
Yeah, like this team could do nothing and it'd be a fine deadline. But I like adding that second C in Kadri would be like it would be really cool. I think that like that as scary as it is from a Sens fan's perspective, like that would be pretty good playing with Demidov, just two dynamic guys who can whip the puck around so well. That would be scary. And this team could go all I don't want to say all the way, but like they could make a very deep run in the playoffs adding a second line center.
Yeah, I think in the years to come we'll definitely see far too much of this team.
For sure.
But also, yeah, I totally agree with both of you guys. Like, don't sacrifice the next few years for just this year, especially with other teams loading up so much. Like, just, I think they'll make a solid playoff appearance this year and then focus on the few years to come. One thing that's not a trade, but just got finalized is Matthew Joseph signed with LA on a prorated deal for $900,000. St. Louis terminated his contract today, so.
One of the moves of all time.
Yep. Sure is news.
Maybe just like fill in a roster spot with an NHL player, probably. Yeah.
All right. So then for Montreal, as it stands right now, unless they do something in the next 30 minutes, absolutely nothing. Where are we leaving them?
It's hard to like say. Like B is, I think, a positive grade, so it's hard to give them a positive grade when you do nothing. So I'd probably just say C. Like they didn't.
Yeah.
They could have added something big and made themselves a true contender, but they also didn't hurt the future. So I just say C. It's kind of mid.
Yeah, I like C. I think they did fine with their assets. They didn't even their assets are important. All they need is development. Like this team will get better. Their direction is up for the Habs.
Exactly.
So they don't need to do much. If they got a second line center, maybe a B, maybe an A, depending on who they get.
Yeah.
But I think C is good.
Even if they updated, like you were saying, upgraded their goaltending as well.
Yes.
Because I know there was talks of Binnington to Montreal was one of the landing spots people were hoping for.
I would just wonder what they'd have to give up to get
Yeah,
Binnington, though.
I don't
like,
know what at all
you
the
have to
price
sacrifice
is.
something.
But he hasn't been good in the NHL. So
he's been
also, how
terrible.
much does he really cost?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that moves us on to Boston, which I've got here. They have done one trade, and it's been a prospects swap, basically. They got in Alexis Gendron and Massimo Rizzo and put out with Brett Harrison and Jackson Edwards. I like Jackson Edwards as a prospect, so I don't really like this swap for them. I don't know if it was honestly necessary. They're in a weird spot right now in the standings and in the playoff kind of run, and so I feel like if they were to do something, they should have done more than this, or they could have just left it and said, we're kind of rebuilding. But just to swap these prospects is just honestly a weird move to me.
Yeah, like Massimo Rizzo was highly regarded a couple years ago. He was great for Denver. Then he was okay in the AHL last year. He's been in the ECHL this year. Kind of like a nothing swap almost. Like it's like neither of the guys that were in the deal or any of the guys in the deal weren't doing that great in the AHL. Like none of them have the highest like pro ceiling here. So not really like hard to say it's a bad trade. But it's also like not a needle mover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the Atlantic standings are so congested right now, and the Boston Bruins, if you would have asked me where the Boston Bruins would have placed at the beginning of the season, I would have said, congratulations, you're going for a rebuild.
Where the Leafs are, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that this team is still contending for a wild card spot is kind of insane, and I don't know if the trajectory should be up right now. Like, yes, I don't see the Boston Bruins as a playoff team next year. Like, I think David Pastrnak and the resurgence of Morgan Geekie, one of the luckiest players in the NHL, I'll just put it out there. He's got a phenomenal shot, but he doesn't do much else other than shoot the puck very, very well. I don't know if you just go all in, because if you go all in, it's going to be a very rough couple years coming up. I think this team should I don't want to say tear it down, because I think they just need a retool.
Yeah.
And being like, could be a team that's going to miss out by a couple points. And that's no direction. You're just a bang mid team. And you're not making the playoffs, you're not getting a good pick, and they got to pick a direction. They either got to go all in or sell everybody out. So
I agreed. I don't think going all in is the move this year. As a former Bruins fan, I was like growing up, I was always a Bruins fan, and then last year and the year before, they just kind of traded away like anyone I ever loved, and I was like, okay, whatever, we're over it. And now I'm all in on the Sens. But I think, like you were saying, like the rebuild should be the option here, and they don't need to blow everything up this deadline, especially because they're a competitive hockey team this year, so I don't think they needed to sell everyone this year. And honestly, like what was out there, I don't think they needed to. But yeah, as long as they were almost accidentally competitive this year, and so they really don't need to go all in and try and make a playoff push, because they weren't even in there on purpose, really. And so the fact that they can kind of retool while still being a competitive team is good, and I think this trade meant nothing, but as a deadline, it wasn't horrible.
Yeah. I think that if they have a move, it's more so in the offseason. Like, they don't have the most cap room.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would more so buy in the offseason. Like, I think Pettersson would be a great fit there, because I don't think people realize how, like, old Pasternak, McAvoy, and Swayman are. Like, their big three aren't necessarily young. Then they also have a good prospect pool coming up. Like, James Hagens is a blue-chip guy.
For
Dean
sure.
Letourneau has really turned it around this year. Minton's been great. So if you can swap, like, I don't know, Lorai and Poitras, like, I don't think Pettersson's value is going to be crazy high in this offseason. So if you can do that and add a player who has star potential, I think that'd be great. Obviously, it's hard to make that work at the deadline, though.
They're like soft launching a rebuild here, and they're doing it slow, and I think that's honestly good for them, especially like just Boston hockey. Like, I think as long as they're competitive, it's kind of like the Leafs. Like, they can never really fully rebuild and throw everything away, because no one's going to be happy about it.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is probably the best move for them right now. But I agree, they should find some direction, and the offseason is probably where they're going to do that.
Yeah, I think build around the prospects. I like what you mentioned there, Clint. Like, I think like James Hagens, just the prospect he is. Like, he is the future, probably number one center. Even some like Fraser Minton, who's already in the lineup and he's already being impactful. He's also someone you can kind of build around as a middle six center. I think the prospects they have, that should be the main focus of the future. If it isn't already, and they're just kind of maybe waiting a year or two until some of these guys move their way up to the AHL, maybe get out of the NCAA or wherever they're playing, and kind of go all in on them. But it'll be interesting to see where the Bruins kind of take it over the next couple of years. Like, where does David Pastrnak end up? Because he is still one of the best players in the NHL. He's phenomenal.
Two more updates. Apparently, the Capitals are acquiring Timothy Liljegren.
Interesting.
And it's a first, a third, and then a prospect that's unnamed so far for Braden Shen. Which I don't know how much I love that for the Islanders, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So wrapping up Boston here, I'd throw them in like C or D.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I like that.
Which
Didn't really do much. Like, maybe.
Like, I feel like D's like they did a bad job, and so I feel like I'll save them for C. Like, because I feel like we're gonna put people who lost a trade in D, and I think C is a fine place for them to be right now. Which brings us to the Ottawa Senators and Jacob.
Lovely. Okay, let's get into this. The Ottawa Senators have made two moves this deadline. Warren Foegele, one of the best defensive players in the NHL. That's my talking point about him. Only 9 points this year with the LA Kings, but a guy who's had a lot of trouble actually finding the back of the net. Only 5%, I believe, of his shots go in, and that's just like, I think that's just a number that's just like super improbable, and I think that's just unlucky. That's what I'm bringing it down to. So
Ottawa's gonna bring him some luck.
Exactly.
You can't be that bad at shooting.
No. So I think it's gonna fit perfect in this bottom six, and because we had so many NHL players, kind of like NHL like players that could be an NHL lineup in that bottom six. That's what resulted in the David Perron trade, because obviously Perron's injured right now. He's not going to help the lineup anytime really soon. I believe he was coming back maybe in the next couple of weeks to a month, but a guy who takes $4 million off of the salary cap and as well just, get the chance at a potential deep run with the Detroit Red Wings, and gives the Sens $13 million to maybe make a move, fingers crossed, over the next 30 minutes. I'm hoping for a right shot defenseman, hopefully, because Nick Jensen has been brutal this year. And just like if you just watch Sens hockey, I swear 75% of the goals is just a Nick Jensen blunder. And so I'd really like them to make a solidified move for someone to play with Thomas Chabot.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe looking at like a Zach Whitecloud out in Calgary potentially, who just got to the Flames as well. But back to Warren Foegele, I think it was an all right move. What, they gave up a second and a third, I believe.
It was second, and they got a third and they gave a third.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of weird.
Yeah. So basically, just a Warren Foegele for a second round pick, and that was actually the second round pick that they got in the Dylan Cousins trade.
True,
so it's pretty much Josh Norris for Dylan Cousins, Warren Foegele. That's what I like to break it down to. So,
and I don't hate that.
No, I don't hate it either. So yeah, we'll see how Foegele does. It really solidifies that third line. I'm looking him to play with Michael Amadio and Shane Pinto. I think that third line would be fantastic. And then Giroux can kind of flutter around, probably the second line, play him wherever, because he can just move up and down. And Ridley Gregg also gets solidified into the top six, which is probably that second line.
And I love Ridley
Well,
Gregg.
that's perfect, because I love Ridley Gregg too. He just shows such a gritty player, so tenacious. So yeah, I like the move. I think the Sens the Sens are a better team than where they're at right now. I'll say that, yes, I know it sounds a bit biased because I'm a Sens fan, but
I agree.
the goaltending has been terrible. Like the saves above expected. Linus Ullmark is like second last next to Jordan Binnington, who's dead last. And Levi Merlin, their backup goalie, is like fourth last.
Yeah.
And the Sens on their numbers showcase they're like fourth in goals expected versus goals against. Like, it's just come down to goaltending, and they've lost so many games. They've just threw away points like it's nothing. I'm thinking even the other night against Edmonton, where they went over, like they had a 4-2 lead, threw it away. So I don't think this team needed to go really all in, because they've had the numbers to back up that this is a team that can make it to the playoffs comfortably and probably find a way into a second round and maybe potentially a third round. But we'll just focus on getting to the first round first of all. But I think Warren Foegele's a tidy move by Steve Sayos, and we'll see if he's done.
Yeah, I think if he makes another move, I agree it should be a defenseman, especially with the goaltending being worse than expected this year. Because you can't just like say, oh, they have horrible goaltending. Like, Ullmark would be good. I think he's having an off year.
Yes.
I think you can't just throw away that move and that, like, try and get a goaltender this year, because you have to trust that he's going to be better next year. Yeah. But adding a defender who's maybe around for the end of this season and still there next year would be a good move. Clint, have you been seeing all of this Leafs details coming?
I have not. I've been trying to find the McMahon return.
Yeah. Someone said that it's Nicholas Roy. Someone else said it's a fourth and a fifth. Actually, no.
Wait, what?
No.
Nicholas Roy? What?
Yeah. Julian in the chat said Nicholas Roy is the return to Toronto for the McMahon trade. I don't know if that's...
Oh, in Colorado?
What?
Like, did Nicholas Roy just went to Colorado
They just traded him there for a first. What?
I know. I don't...
They're getting him back.
They can be trolling.
They could be trolling this year.
And then Blanchard's just messing everything up in there, so... There's lots of chatter going on.
I feel like if you don't mind doing the Panthers before I do the Leafs, I just want to give it some time to see if the McMahon return comes out.
Yeah.
Apparently Lawton's maybe getting dealt.
Yeah.
So I don't want to waste our time with the thing. I will say the one thing about the Sens though is they have like no ammo in this year's draft.
Yeah.
Because they already lost their first, so giving up your next most valuable pick in the second, like, that puts more pressure on your prospects you drafted last year to develop into something, because this is just basically another year that you're not going to get a high-end guy. They do have 3 third-round picks, but they haven't necessarily been the greatest depth drafting team.
No.
Terrible.
So that's the one thing that I would say,
Yeah.
the one caveat I would attach to this deadline here.
Yeah, just like looking at the last 5 years of second-round picks picked by the Sens, I don't think any of them will become NHL players.
Yeah,
It's just been, the drafting has been terrible by the Sens. And that's something they did change internally. So hopefully maybe that's the whole different conversation about trade deadline. But Warren Foegele. Fingers crossed he's going to be productive. So.
All right. With that, I feel like we're throwing everyone in C, but I feel like that's probably where I'd C or D C or B for the Sens deadline.
Maybe I'd like to see. I think I want to see them do another move.
Okay.
And maybe that limits me from putting them higher.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to push my bias to the side because I'm gonna say, right in between C and B would be perfect, but obviously can't do that. So,
I feel like until they do something else, I'd be fine throwing them in C.
okay, just like average. Just
Yeah,
average,
I think it wasn't a bad deadline, but it could have been better. But also, this year's kind of weird for them because they are kind of underperforming, and they went not all in last year, but they added last year, and now they're like, okay, we'll see what happens this year. But yeah, with that, I guess we'll move on to Florida while we wait out what happens in Toronto. They've made 2 trades, both with Minnesota. They got rid of Jeff Petrie for a 2026 7th rounder conditional, so that's sure happened. And then they also got rid of Vinny. How do you even say that last name, Clint?
I thought they brought in Vinny Hinostroza for future considerations.
I might have put that in backwards. They
Yeah.
brought
they
him in
did,
and then got rid of future considerations. So, yeah, not a lot happening in Florida.
Pretty irrelevant deadline. They've been scratching Greer the past couple days,
Yeah.
so he might get dealt, but like I don't know how much AJ Greer is going to return. If maybe they shock the hockey world with the Bobrovsky trade in the next 20-ish minutes here. But until then, it's been a pretty irrelevant deadline for the Panthers.
Yeah. I mean, Bobrovsky's name has been thrown around a couple times. No
Yeah.
goalies have really got off the board yet. Like, I know Binnington was in the conversation too. So, and obviously Bobrovsky, talk about a contending team wanting a goalie. There's nobody else in the league probably than Bobrovsky who I'd really want, who's on the trading block.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
That's a big name, but probably maybe he's older, but probably entails a decent return, especially from what we've been seeing thrown around, getting back and forth this trade deadline. So we'll see. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers just lost him 2 years in a row, and they need a damn goalie. So, maybe, but I don't know. Just throwing some stuff around there. That'd be very interesting to see, though. It's been unfortunate for the Florida Panthers. Obviously, losing Barkov is just terrible. Matthew Tkachuk was out since he was out from the start of the season until December. So just not the season they would have wanted, and they are pretty destined to not make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't they'll be back next year. I think they will maybe be a team that kind of flutters around the wild card in and out, maybe gets to that 3rd spot in the Atlantic, but I don't just because they've been so brutal this year, they are not done with their but I think with their tenure of making the playoffs.
Yeah. I definitely have faith in the Panthers next year.
Yeah.
Plus, I think they're going to do some insane unethical tanking for the rest of the year. If they might trade Bobrovsky, they're going to they're shutting down Tkachuk. I wouldn't be surprised if they shut down Marchand too. Just tell Barkov, just wait till next year, buddy.
Yeah.
And get as high of a pick as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they probably won't do much, but if they were, they're saving it for the off season here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've also seen, I don't know if this has been shot down, but Samoskevich, I saw maybe something linked. I see there's an article here from the Hockey News linked to the Kraken.
Yes, I saw the Kraken run. I was going to talk about that in the Kraken part.
Okay.
I don't know if I would be giving him up as the Panthers, but at the same time, I don't think they have the cap space to extend him.
Yeah.
He hasn't been having the greatest year, so maybe they're able to get him back on a cheaper deal. So maybe this is something we wait out, see the rest of the year, and then maybe trade him in the offseason if you can't agree to a deal because he is an RFA. But I would like that move for the Kraken, to be honest, but I'll get there later.
Okay. Yeah, looking at Florida, where would you guys throw them?
They've been so I think honestly because they've been so bad, but they're going to be good next year. That they really didn't do anything, and they didn't really do anything. So, I'd probably just say honestly C. I think that's just average. They didn't. Yeah, it's really there is such a hard situation. I think Bobrovsky could be the swaying point of that if they go up or down because if they decide to trade him, and if they don't, then they're still C. So.
Sounds good to me.
Well, with no return out yet on McMahon, I'll dive into the Leafs here. I think if you look at the whole season as a whole, it is a complete failure. But if you look at just this deadline, getting a 1st-round pick and a 5th-rounder, which is just kind of a throw-in for Nick Waugh, is great value. I would not I was stunned to see that when I saw the reports that they were asking a 1st-round pick. I was like, there's no way they're going to get that. At least not without taking on bad money from someone else. But they traded him out with no retention and bring back a 1st-round pick, which is huge considering they don't have their 1st this year. They don't have their 1st next year. So this allows them to at least kind of retool in the offseason. They did have good center depth down the middle with Matthews, Tavares, Waugh, of course, and then Lawton, who they might also trade. So it'll be interesting to see how they replace that next year. But I like them adding ammo for the offseason, and I think they're going to add more with McMahon, and I'd like to see them sell Ekman Larson and Lawton for whatever they can get and then just kind of retool in the offseason because I find it's way better to buy in the offseason because, you're not paying a first for Nick Wall in the offseason. Like, that's just not what's going to happen. But the prices get jacked up, so they did a great job leveraging that here, and I hope that they cash in the offseason on the other end of it.
I can agree with that. There's a lot, like, the teams that are selling off their players have a lot more leverage than the teams that are buying, and that's why you see the insane prices. The fact that, like, I remember when this got dropped yesterday, and the fact they got a first-round pick for Nicholas Waugh was just insane, but it is what it is. I guess the Avalanche really wanted him, so we'll see what happens with McMahon. Like, this team, it's just so interesting. They fell off a hill this year, but they still have, like, really good pieces. Obviously, Austin Matthews is obviously not his 69-goal self, but still a fantastic player. William Nylander, also fantastic. Easton Cowan, young guy, maybe not really, probably it's like a complimentary player you kind of build around. Like, he's going to be a part of the future. John Tavares, maybe a guy I could see them selling off John Tavares kind of soon because he's obviously older, and I think he'd be a perfect fit for a team that's going for a cup run. I'm kind of surprised. I don't want to say I'm surprised his name wasn't thrown around this deadline because I think the Leafs, maybe their decision to kind of sell things off was made just a bit too late to sell that big of a name. But because I think their trajectory is not to make the playoffs this year, and I think they understand that, which is good. I think just took them a while for Leafs fans and the organization to get to that because they've been good for so long that after 9 years of making the playoffs and still having your superstar captain Austin Matthews and his winger William Nylander, it's really hard to make that decision saying, hey, like, we're taking a step back this year. We got to relook the team because we're not going to go deep in the playoffs as we maybe they haven't in the past, but we're not going to be first place in the Eastern Conference and make the playoffs. So
yeah, I will say the one thing I did say I'd like to see them trade off the other guys. They are playing a dangerous game if they do that, because if they trade off Lawton and Roy and they trade Oliver Ekman, Larson, and McMahon, that really hurts their depth. And then if they don't get in the top 5, then they could send like a 6 through 10 pick to Boston, which is just nightmare scenario for the Leafs. So they really, if they do go full turbo sell here, they have to make sure that they get in the bottom 5 picks here, or else that would just be a complete disaster.
Yeah. Actually, I saw something today. I was watching the TSN broadcast, and they did a lottery kind of mock draft with the official things. And I remember the Leafs, actually, they were placed 8th in the lottery, and TSN had them officially jumping from 8 to 1.
Of course
they did in perfect TSN fashion, to cater to the audience. It was just so funny. I was sitting in class and I was like, okay, here we go. Oh, they get this team goes, this team goes, this team goes. All of a sudden, the Leafs get 1. So I thought that was, of course, they did. So
I'm sure it was an actual simulation,
right? Exactly.
That had the Leafs moving up to 1.
A little more news. Apparently, TSN is maybe rumorly reporting that the McMahon return is lowered to a second.
Yeah, I mean, that's still fine. Like, if you're like, you can complain they're not getting a first, but a second, like, for a depth guy, is actually a good return. Like, other teams have gotten some hauls this deadline, but getting a first and a second back for Waugh and McMahon. And it's also been reported that McMahon would be open to a reunion in the offseason, so if you can sign him back and get a second, like, that's just fantastic work. So we'll see there.
All right. Okay. Where are we throwing that deadline for them?
I would say A, and then if they do well in the other moves, then I'll say I could move it to S, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I like A. I think they needed to sell off some of their depth pieces, some of their middle sixers, and that's exactly what they're doing. So,
All right. That rounds out the Atlantic there. We'll come back if anything does happen. A few moves we're waiting on in these last 15 minutes, and I'm sure some usually come out a few minutes after the deadline anyway.
Yes.
But that brings us to the Metro, and starting with the Carolina Hurricanes, Jacob.
All right. Well, the Hurricanes, a very good team, a team that's been good for a while now, and honestly, every year they seem to be kind of in on the big names. Obviously, last year with Mikko Rantanen, who was on that team for a couple of weeks, and then traded off. Unfortunately, didn't want to stick around. He goes to Dallas, and then they get a younger piece. But this team hasn't made a crazy amount of trades. We haven't seen them really in the mix as we have in years past. They made one with the Flyers, requiring a depth player for a 7th round pick.
Yep.
And I don't like this. Like, this team is really good, and I think they've solidified themselves at the top of the Metropolitan Division. So they didn't need to do a crazy amount. Clint, how do you think, like, with this team not making any moves, I think they'll be fine heading into the playoffs, still able to make a deep run?
I'm going to be honest. I really hate them not making a big move. They have a ton of assets. Like they have
They do.
Nadeau, they have Nikishin who they could trade, and they are like easily the second best team in the East this year, like only behind Tampa Bay. Right now, I don't think they're good enough to beat Tampa Bay, and I think that if they made a huge splash, like say it's a Robert Thomas or getting a legitimate 2C, which has been their hole for like years in a row, they just refuse to address that hole. If they made a big splash like that, they could be true Stanley Cup contenders. And right now, like they're the Hurricanes, they'll probably go to the Eastern Conference Finals again because the Metro is weak. But I don't think they're actually that great of a team. Like they just lost to my Kraken the other night, and they did not look good at all. Which I know is just one game, but I think that they need to add more star power to truly go on a run, and they didn't do that here. So I'm a little upset with that.
Okay.
I agree with you. The Chicago Wolves were just in Toronto for a little 2-game homestand here, and I was working both games, and they have so many assets they could have just sold. They have and we were honestly we were talking about the Leafs earlier, and I was like, man, they just like the Marlies are not good this year. They've got no direction in that sense, but the Wolves, and they've been really good. And Carolina has so many assets, and I agree they're always a competitive team. They're a bit of a boring hockey team, but they're good. Yeah. And they'll probably they'll make it to the however far in the playoffs because it's not the hardest run, but. Yeah, I don't think this is their cup year, but it could have been maybe if they made some big splashes at this deadline, but they didn't lose per se anything. So.
Yeah. I think this is their time period to win. Like Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, and even Svechnikov. Like that's their kind of core they're building around. And obviously they're still fairly young, but obviously time just gets them older, right? And they got to build around it right now. Like Logan Stankoven is obviously a younger piece. They just acquired Nikolai Ehlers, I believe, in this last off season, and obviously he's not going to stick around forever. So like if this team has got a buy-in now, their D-core is phenomenal. Jacob Slavin's just getting older and older, but he's still one of the best, probably the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. And so, Clint, I agree with your point. Like this team needs to do, like their time to win is now. Like they can't wait say, oh yeah, we're going to win in 2 years. We'll keep acquiring pieces. Like, no, you got to win in these next couple of years. I think their time, like as the years goes on, is just closing. And the Hurricanes, they got to make something. They didn't make a splash here. So, well, I mean, still 12 minutes, I guess. And I'm sure, like I remember last year, trades do trickle in after because they have to go through the NHL process. They have to get approved.
That Marchand one came in like
20
5 minutes. Yeah, we were like wrapping up, and I was like, wait, hold on. That was crazy, actually. I want another like move like that.
Yeah.
Like one that no one's seen that coming.
Maybe what about like John Carlson last night? That was
especially how
stunning.
late it was.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
All right. Where would we throw the Hurricanes then?
I'm fine to take pushback on this. I would put it D. This is like the opposite optics of the Sabres.
Yeah.
Like the Sabres, like you needed to buy and you bought. That's great for the fan base. This one, like Nick Delorier being your buy is like a slap in the face to Hurricanes fans. Like they should go all in. And like I understand that Rantanen didn't extend, so maybe they have like some fears. But Tulsky has said he wants to make any big splash he can, and if they don't do it here, I think that's very frustrating for the fans. So I would say it's a D.
I agree with you on that. I really liked your reasoning. Yeah, you've convinced me. D. I like that.
I'm in for that because I like the Hurricanes. They're like not a fun team to watch. Their players are fun to watch. I'm obviously high on Seth Jarvis. Love that guy, but like. They're just lacking, and people say it's funny that you mentioned Carolina fans are going to be upset about this because they don't have all that many. But I agree that now's the time to buy, and they didn't do it, and it's just going to get harder every year they wait. Which moves us to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which they hadn't done anything until
they had the Gerard swap, the Gerard Kulak swap, which I thought was good,
and then. They just have the Soderblom one that you had. Yeah, I honestly don't. That was my team, but I don't have that many thoughts on Pittsburgh's deadline. Like, we talked about it a little bit earlier with Detroit, but...
I thought they did well. Like, I think maybe they trade Skinner as well, but getting a second-round pick and getting Gerard, who I don't think is really worse than Kulak, is good work. And then I'm willing to... it's more than I would have paid for Soderblom, but I'm willing to hear them out with how well their last acquisition went. And people complained about the price they paid for Chinikov, and he's been fantastic. So I'd hear them out.
Yeah.
I think the direction of this team is really weird. Like, obviously, they're just hovering around the cusp. Maybe are they in the third spot of the Metro right now?
They are in a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, and obviously Crosby
Two
is
spot.
out
The
right
two
now.
spot,
yeah.
In the
actually.
2 spot. Wow,
Yeah.
how many points?
The document's like ordered in the standings.
Okay. Oh, is it? Oh, sweet.
I didn't just like randomly throw them in there.
Good to know. Okay, yeah. Like this team, I think yes, they're gonna make the playoffs, but I don't see them going deep in the playoffs.
No.
Like maybe Sidney Crosby is a difference maker, obviously, but
Yeah.
at the ripe age of 36 years old, around there, something like that. Or maybe even 38. He's obviously not getting any younger. Like Malkin's 39. Carlson's 35, Letang's 38. Like, eventually, this team has got to go to the direction of their younger players. Like, obviously, Rutger McGorty's coming up, Tanner Howe. Like, they have some decent prospects. Maybe I'd like to see a couple more, though. Just really try to solidify that new generation. Ben Kindle, obviously, probably one of their big unreal, absolutely, and kind of came out of nowhere as well. Drafted. I honestly thought he got drafted too early in the draft when he got picked, but obviously I stand corrected because he's been fantastic. So I'd say I'd like to see them just absolutely tear things down and retool. But if they're in the second spot in the Metro, obviously I'm proven wrong. But I just don't see them going far in the playoffs at all. But
yeah, going into the year, I definitely would have been in the same position. But like, when you have Crosby in this late stage of his career, you can't trade him when you're in a playoff spot. And I think they handled it perfectly. Like, they did kind of sell trading away Jari, and they got a second for that. And they got Kulak, and then they traded Kulak away for Gerard in a second, which is like another like hockey trade, but they got a pick. So I feel like they didn't hurt their team's not worse than it was before.
Yep.
They're staying in a playoff spot, which is great for the fans, and they've picked up picks. So I think they did really well here, to be honest.
Okay.
How well?
I would say if there was a B plus, I would do B plus. So I would say B.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good with B.
Perfect.
Is it onto my Islanders now that I have? I'm gonna be honest. I don't like this Shen move. Like, a first and a third and a prospect, which it depends. Like, it could be really bad if the prospect is a high level guy. I'm assuming it's not. But just because Shen is 34 years old and only has 28 points in 61 games, like, I don't think he's really a difference maker. Like, I don't think he's going to push them to go on a deep run. Like, I don't think they're going to beat Carolina. I don't think that maybe they beat the Penguins in the first round. I think I would probably predict them to do that.
Yep.
But I don't think they're going on a deep run. And when you have a young core of like Schaefer, Ritchie, Yzerman, Eklund. I really like Kashawn Aitchison. They did a really good job building that last year. And I think just giving up a first round pick, I assume it's probably the Colorado pick that I believe that they own in this deal. But either way, like, I would have liked to see them just continue to build a young core. And if they were going to make a trade and give up a first round pick, I would have liked to see them do it for Jordan Kyrou, because at least he's the age of Barzal and Horvat and those guys.
Yeah.
So I would put this in like a C or maybe even a D deadline, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is kind of going the opposite direction of where they want to go, because they need to, as you mentioned, they got to rebuild around the Matthew Barzals and even obviously the upcoming of Callum Ritchie and all their young studs. Matthew Schaefer, not obviously got to mention him, but like they already they're just like they have some older players that are kind of I don't want to say filling roster spots, but kind of just hovering around the middle six. They can kind of play anywhere. Like Andre Palat's one, Jonathan Drouin is a guy who's been thrown around the league a couple times, and then Braden Shen obviously brings a lot of leadership. I'd say that's the only thing. Like, he's a veteran presence, and he could probably teach a lot to these younger kids about what it means to be an everyday NHL player. And he's won a cup before, obviously in 2019. So, like, I guess that's the only reason. But it was a first round pick given
first round
that
pick
is
and a third
unreal.
and an unnamed prospect, and there's no retention on his $6.5 million until he's 36 years old.
Yeah,
like, I just don't like this.
I agree with you. I'd much rather see that first round pick used to bring in a guy who's around the age of where they're trying to build around and who could be useful in the future. Not saying Brandon Shen won't, but obviously his age is a big factor. And I just think that use of a key asset like a first round pick just used totally incorrectly. I think Braden Shen would have been a good tool for a team that is trying to make a deep run this year. I don't think the Islanders are making a deep run this year. So
yeah, agreed.
Perfect. What did you say, C or D?
I'll say C, and then if it's a prospect I like, I'll move it down.
Okay, I'm gonna agree exactly. Actually, I'm gonna go D right off the bat, because I think we put a couple teams at C where we'd be like, oh, they've been all right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so
I think we said, like, if someone loses, they'll go in D, and honestly, like, for where they're at, this is a bit of a loss.
Yeah.
All right, then we head over to Washington, which, like we were saying, big sell over there.
yeah, they get rid of their all-time defenseman, first in games played, first in points. give him up to the Anaheim Ducks, which that team is looking phenomenal. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, Washington in a spot where they're just outside of the wild card right now. And obviously they have big pieces like Alexander Ovechkin, who this could be maybe his final season. Maybe he's got one more under his belt next year. But I think it was like, just think about the direction. Like I think this is a big indicator that this team is wanting to go obviously to the younger side. Like you don't trade away your all-time defenseman and not wanting to go in a different direction. And mind you, they're still not like they're bang mid in the NHL standings. Like I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. I think the wild card spots will be eaten up by 2 Atlantic teams, and I don't know if they'll get a good pick because they're still like bang mid in the NHL. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think if they were gonna like backdoor trade Carlson away, like I'd like to see them move Ovechkin too.
Yes.
Like I think both of those guys should have retired Capitals. And originally when it was reported last night when it came out, I forget which insider it was, but they said that the deal has been worked on since this afternoon. So I assumed that meant that they had told Carlson, hey, we might trade you to Anaheim. And then it came out this morning that he didn't know, and he woke up this morning to find out he had been traded, which is just like nice. I don't know. And the return that they got, like I don't even think a first round pick and a third is that good for John Carlson. Like he's way better than like Nicholas Waugh, who got a first and a fifth.
Yeah.
So like I really don't like that move from an optics perspective from them to trade your best defenseman in franchise history for a not great return in the middle of the night. Like that's just not good.
Exactly.
They do have a good young core, so they've been pretty good at drafting in the mid to late first round. So I'll give them credit for that. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of this optics wise. And they also traded away Nick Dowd.
Yeah.
And it was reported after the Nick Dowd move that the locker room was really in a bad mood after the Dowd trade because he's a heart and soul guy. And then doing it again with Carlson, like man, that locker room's got to be in turmoil.
Exactly. You have to rebuild at that point. Like if first of all, if the locker room is in a bad situation, there's no way you're going to turn around, especially this season and going on the next few seasons to make anything successful. I think they got to kind of burn it down. I want to say, especially with Ovechkin finally leaving. Like they have a couple good pieces. Obviously, I love Ryan Leonard. He's a leader. He's an absolute gamer. So I think he's going to be a big piece of the future. And I also wonder, like John Carlson's name wasn't really thrown around at this trade deadline. Like where was all the buzz around him?
Yeah.
And were the Capitals only in conversation with the Anaheim Ducks? Like I wonder if the Ducks maybe, I don't want to say reached out to the Capitals because that's a big name to reach out about, saying, hey, is this guy available? Your best defenseman all time. But like they definitely could. I wonder like where his name was thrown around through all the GMs and who knew he was on the trading block.
I think it was reported earlier in the week that they had started negotiations with him on a contract extension, and I assume that the talks just didn't go well. They didn't want to pay him what he was asking for, and then they decided to put him on the block, and that's when Anaheim called. But yeah, like just a wild move.
Yeah.
Because I think if there would have been more buzz, mind you, we're just fans. We just hear what the insiders are reporting. But like I would just have expected maybe a bigger return for John Carlson, and that's why I'm saying like maybe if his name was thrown around a little bit more, that maybe other teams would have known he was on a big name on the trading block. Because we've seen a lot of these defensemen go for some decent prices, and they would have got a better return. But who knows? So
yeah. What are we saying for where this goes for the Caps? Gotta be low.
Yeah, I would say D as well.
Yeah,
I think they're
like
more
D.
of a loser.
Yeah.
I think it's the right direction because I think they need to go. I mean, mind you, there's like Jacob Chikrin's still he's a fantastic player. Like they still have pieces, I think, to make a run, but the season hasn't gone their way. And getting rid of a player like John Carlson is just so impactful, and you didn't get much for him. That this team is new direction is just straight down. So I don't know.
And like, we'll get to this when I talk about Anaheim, but I love this trade for them. And if it's that good for them, then it's not good for Washington. So there's also that. But first, we'll head to the Columbus Blue Jackets here. And like we mentioned earlier, spoiled a little bit. They added Connor Garland, which I love this for them. This is, I think, a great move. Like, it's a great move for Vancouver, too. It's a good move for Vancouver because they had to sell this year.
Yeah.
And that's not a place they've been in all that recently. That's been coming since the Quinn Hughes trade. But I like this landing spot for Connor Garland. I think he'll fit in very well there.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about it more. I'll talk about it more on the Vancouver part. But I like this ad. The contract could age a little poorly because it's he has a 6-year or a 7-year extension at $6 million kicking in next year.
Yeah.
And he is already 29, so he's not necessarily old right now. But by the end of that, he will be old.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll be too detrimental in the long run. It's a good ad right now. He's well worth it right now. Good for Columbus optically to be going in here.
Yep.
There were reports that maybe they would sell Charlie Coyle or Boone Jenner or some of these types of guys. And with the East wide open, only paying a second and a third to get an upgrade like that, I like that move for them.
Yeah, like this team is still in kind of the conversations of will they make the playoffs. They're not too many points out of that last wild card, and I think they have the pieces to do it. I just think there's too many teams right now trying to make the playoffs. I love Connor Garland though. I loved him on Vancouver. Such a gamer, can play anywhere in the lineup. Just fine. Like his positioning, like he's a smaller guy, but his positioning is just perfectly on point. He just finds himself always in the right areas. And I think this is a major ad for Columbus. I agree with you, Clint. Like the question marks of late in that new contract, making $6 million, like that's going to be a big number against the books, especially if Columbus's window is now opening and in maybe 6 years you're kind of still trying to be, probably I'd hope they're a cup contender by then, especially with Adam Fantilli probably definitely in his prime by then. So I agree with that, but I think of the Connor Garland we know now, I think is worth this trade, but we'll see how much longevity he has in that contract.
Yeah,
So.
definitely.
For sure. I would say anything higher than B here for them, obviously. Like B or higher.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say
I like B. I like B, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say B because I think it could age. The contract could age a little poorly, but I would say
as of right now, it's very
As of right
good.
now, I'd throw B.
Yes. Also, this is only dated, but Mason Marchment went down yesterday, and I remember when that happened. Like, oh, Mason Marchment went down, and then they had Connor Garland. And all of a sudden, that's a guy who can fill a role in the top 6. So
yeah, don't get me started on Mason Marchment.
yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of opinions, but I like the ad for Connor Garland. Middle 6 can play anywhere in the lineup, so just perfect utility player. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the Philadelphia Flyers here next.
Yep.
I really liked what they were doing earlier in the deadline here. The David Jiricek for Bobby Brink swap, I really like that for them. Bobby Brink is another undersized forward at 5'8", who wasn't like necessarily the greatest for the Flyers. He plays hard. He has a decent amount of skill. He was around a half point per game this year. I like them moving off him for David Jiricek, who he's had his struggles. He's 22 now. He was a former top pick though. Pick 6 in 2022 for the Blue Jackets. He's got 2 change of sceneries now, which I don't know how well that bodes for his future, but I like the talent.
Clint, you're gonna probably want to hear this. Bobby McMahon to Seattle.
Oh God, no!
Oh, wow.
Okay, we'll see what I think of that deal.
Per Elliot Friedman 15 seconds ago. That's all. That's all it is
God.
right now. Is just
my.
Bobby McMahon
Brutal.
to Seattle. So we'll revisit the Leafs at some point, and when we get to Seattle, we'll see.
Okay, I've seen 2 Seattle trades now. Apparently, we did something else as well, but it was quickly deleted, so maybe we didn't do it. Maybe they just posted for the wrong team. Yeah, I'll get to that later. I'll finish. Yeah, I like the Jiricek. Sorry, that threw me off. I like the Jiricek ad for Philadelphia. I really like that trade. But I think it's a failure that they didn't trade Rasmus Ristolainen. With the prices people are going for, I understand that they weren't able to get what they wanted. But I still think, especially when you're bringing in Jiricek, you now have Drysdale and him, and now Ristolainen as well, still in the blue line for this year. And I think I would have rather just seen them trade it and try and bottom out the rest of the year. But it's not necessarily a detriment to the team going forward, so I'd probably just put it as a B. A solid deadline. I like the first move. I think they could have capitalized more, though.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Ristolainen side. He seemed to get a lot of motion around the league. A bigger guy, veteran guy, 31 years old, only 6 points this year, but that's not his job. He's just a shutdown defender. Can complement. He complements Travis Sanheim, a guy who plays first pairing minutes. So. And right-handed defensemen are a luxury in the NHL nowadays, and we've seen what right-handed shot defensemen have been able to get back at this deadline. So I think they could have got a lot of good pieces for the future, and they obviously get one here with David Jiricek. I also agree. I think that's a great trade. A guy, as you mentioned, been traded a couple times, but still has a lot of upside as a shutdown defenseman. So, that's good for the future. And you don't really, Bobby Brink, this team's not going to really have any success this year for the rest of the year. They're probably going to end up being another mid-team, kind of getting a maybe between 10 and 15 in the draft, around there, maybe a little higher too. But I don't mind it. I mean, Bobby Brink's not going to do anything for your lineup for the rest of the year, so might as well get a good piece for the future. I like David Jiricek, so.
Yeah.
Justin Folk to Detroit as well.
Ooh, for what? Do we know the return yet?
No, I'm just reading what Elliot's tweeting. It literally just says Justin Folk goes to Detroit.
I wonder.
Julian's also in the chat saying he hopes Furcus goes to the Leafs for.
Man, if it's Furcus for McMahon, like Julian, you're gonna watch me lose my mind. Like honestly, that's just a brutal deal. I don't like the Bobby McMahon ad, and if we give up an actual good prospect, like I'm gonna lose my mind. The Falk ad I like for Detroit. Their decor is the one area that they do need help in, and this allows them to slide ASP down to the third pair. They can play Sider and Edmondson together still, and then this adds another veteran presence. I would have more so targeted a left shot guy, just that way you could move Sherratt down to the third pair. Like I don't know if he's a great second pair guy, or I would have swung. This is a team that I would have liked to see add Rasmus Ristolainen. Like I don't think Falk is that great of an ad, but hopefully they didn't pay too much of a price here, and we'll see. I guess in a couple minutes.
The rumors are also that it's a second and fourth for McMahon.
That's like a whatever return. We have a bunch of seconds, so like it's not the end of the world. Oh my God, it's a first and a third to Detroit for or to St. Louis for Justin Falk.
Wow.
I don't like that at all.
I wonder if that's the third round pick that they just got acquired from Pittsburgh.
Maybe. I don't like their that move for them. What was our deadline at for them before?
For
Detroit
B.
I would move it down to like D. I really don't like that move. I don't think Falk is that big of a needle mover. And if you're paying a first and third, like we talked about this earlier with the Shen deal, where like if you're gonna pay that much of a price, then it better be like a good ad, like one that fits the timeline. And just spending a first and a third on a rental defenseman that's old is just not a move I'm over. Like I would have rather seen them add a little bit more and get Ristolainen or Parayko or something like that. This is a frustrating deadline for me for them.
Are we good with D, or are we splitting the difference in C here for Detroit?
How heavily are you impacted by this trade, Clint?
I don't like that move. Like I'm going to be completely honest.
Oh, Ryan Strome from Anaheim to Calgary too.
That's just
they're rolling in now.
That's a nothing.
To Calgary?
Yeah.
That's an interesting
Why
move.
Calgary? I don't know, but okay. Sorry. Let's backtrack a bit. Where's Detroit going?
I'm gonna say D. Like I don't think Falk is the type of defenseman they need. He's more of an offensive defenseman than a defensive defenseman, and I think that they needed more defense. Like you have Sider's good, you have ASP, you have ASP is Sandy Pellerin, you have Edmondson.
Yeah.
Like I think they needed more of a defensive guy, and paying a first and a third for an offensive guy, I just don't like that move at all.
Especially come playoff time, like if this team's trying to make a deep run, you want a guy you could trust out there to put it against any top line.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I agree with you. I don't think Justin Falk is that. So, as you mentioned, they have a lot of cap room, so the cap doesn't really matter. Falk makes 6.5 a year, but I can agree with that. And so
We've got lots in C anyway, so I'm happy to put it in D.
Okay, let's do D.
Yeah, going back to Bobby McMahon to Seattle, does that move you? Well, I guess we'll see the return still.
If it's a second and a fourth, like I think that's still like an A. I don't think that moves them up to an S. If they get a prospect, like I know a lot about the Kraken prospects, so if there's a prospect involved, then that could move them up. But we'll see here.
All right, and then we were on Philly as all that happened, and where would you put them?
I would put them B, Philly and B.
Okay. Yep.
Sounds good. That moves us to the Devils. Jacob.
New Jersey. Okay, a team that I'm sure had higher aspirations this year coming into the trade deadline, coming into the season, with the talent they have, but find themselves almost at the bottom of the Metropolitan Division, and they didn't do a whole lot. Is that correct? I don't think they had any moves. To be honest,
I was gonna say I don't think I saw anything.
And you know what? I don't really blame them. Like I think they still have the talent. I think they're kind of, I don't want to say exactly like the Florida Panthers, but I think the Devils will have a bit of a bounce back next year. Like I think just Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, and kind of that offensive core they have can bring a lot of success. And I just think they haven't had it this year. I don't think they needed to sell, but I mean, adding when you're this far away from the playoffs in a congested East is obviously the totally wrong move. So I think that just the clue here is just to ride at the end of the season.
Yeah.
All right. Throw them where?
I mean, I guess it's kind of hard just not to toss them to C, just
That's
average maybe.
C's pretty average.
It's hard. They didn't really do anything, so, and they didn't need to, so.
All right, and that brings us to another team that didn't do all that much in the New York Rangers. They got rid of Sam Carrick for a third and a sixth this coming draft, and honestly, just New York's just been such a dumpster fire for the past few years. Like, it's insane. Just no direction, really, and everything behind the scenes is a mess, and on the ice, it's even more of a mess. They finally won on home ice for the first time in 102 days,
Yeah.
so that's breaking news.
It's brutal.
Leafs fans, of course, they lost it. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'd throw, like, I don't even know.
I would put it pretty low because
Yeah.
I think that they should have moved out on Trocheck now. I understand teams weren't necessarily meeting their price demands, but like his price isn't going to go up. Like when you buy guys in the offseason, it's cheaper, and then also like one more year if you're selling him at next deadline, that's one less year of control, so that just means less value. So I would have liked to see them move him now, especially with all the drama around it. Like there was a story of him telling his kid, "Oh, I might get traded," and all that sort of stuff. So it's like I would have just shipped him off now when he's probably at peak value, like after the Olympics and stuff like that. Yeah.
I think the Olympics, definitely just like being on that roster, winning a gold medal does a bit for his value. He's shown as a winner.
Yeah,
right?
being a PK guy on a PK that didn't allow a goal the entire tournament, that certainly helps.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know there wasn't a ton of big forward names thrown around this deadline, and I think he was a guy that was at the top of the table for the last couple of days, and they hold on to him. And I don't see any value in the Rangers doing that. Obviously, he's not in the lineup right now. He's day to day, but just it doesn't like this team needs to tank. And I'm also surprised. I know the name of Alexis Lafreniere, who hasn't had much success. He's had bits and pieces with the Rangers, but has found nothing sustainable these last couple of years with New York. I'd be interested to see what his future holds for the Rangers. I just think they're in a situation where they've been such a good team for honestly, like not a great team, but they've always been up and down these last I would say decade, to be honest. And now it's about time with how the recent events have played out that they need to sell, especially an older player like Vincent Trocheck. And if something doesn't finalize and we don't hear about it, then
it is reported that they
He's
didn't
staying.
move him. So
okay, yeah, and I think that's because a bit too high of an asking price from the New York Rangers, just being a bit too hesitant. I don't know why. Maybe they're waiting to the offseason, which I don't know if that makes much sense. Maybe before the draft, trying to get maybe a high draft pick or something like that. But honestly, in the offseason, teams, obviously, you're just finishing up the Stanley Cup playoffs, and this is a perfect time. Vincent Trocheck, as we just mentioned, a great shutdown guy, could play him against any top line in the NHL, and that's a perfect guy you want for the playoffs. So the fact the Rangers aren't capitalizing when I'd say this might be the highest his trade value is in the rest of his career, and you're not going to trade him off. So
Yeah. So would you C or D for that?
I would say D.
I was going to say D2. Yeah.
There we go. All right. And that wraps up the East.
Yes.
And brings us to the Colorado Avalanche in the Central over here. Clint.
Yes, so I mean they're the best team in the league. They lead the league in both goals for and goals against. Like they have the least goals against and the most goals for. So they are an absolute wagon. They didn't necessarily need to do too much. Bringing in Nick Waugh is a good depth add for them. Nick Blankenberg, I like too. He was a former Michigan guy, undersized puck moving defenseman. I kind of like that add, but it's not really a needle mover. I will say the prices that they paid for this is not great. Like giving up a first round pick for Nick Waugh is like a bit of an overpay. I don't know if I'm going to give him too much credit here, though. Maybe it's a chess, not checkers move because this was one of the earlier trades in the deadline, like before Trocheck and all these guys got moved. And setting the price for a middle six guy or like a middle six to bottom six center being a first round pick, that like shafted like all the teams that were selling and all the teams that were trying to buy because now the market's been reset. So like I don't know if it's directly like an intentional move to do that, but the result was that like Trocheck didn't get moved, Thomas didn't get moved, Kadri didn't get moved, none of these like star impact forwards got moved. So I think it's not a failure of a deadline because of that. I am nervous. I talked about it with the Sens of they have no picks in this draft.
Yes.
The Avs I don't think have a first round pick until 2028, and their prospect pool is not good. So I do have a little bit of a worries about that, but they're the best team in the league. They got better at the deadline, and they kind of indirectly prevented other teams from getting better. So I would probably put that in a B.
Yeah, like coming into this deadline, it was perceived as a buyer's market.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Wall gets traded for what, a first and a third, and then all of a sudden it's a seller's market
Yeah.
because he gets
That's
traded
how
for
fast
so
it
much.
happens.
Exactly, just in a snap of a finger. But back to your point about the Avalanche having no picks till 2028, no first rounders, that is. Honestly, this is a time where this is their window, and obviously they won Boy Black in 22. That's when it kind of started, and like this core of Nathan McKinnon, obviously the big one, Kale McCarr, is not getting any younger. Brock Nelson has been phenomenal, and he's especially not getting any younger. I think he's got maybe this season, next season, and maybe one more, and this production is just going to dip right down. So they need to win. They need to win now, and honestly, like this is what it takes nowadays to be a Stanley Cup contender. You have to be. You can't be afraid to sell out your top draft picks. A team like the Vegas Golden Knights, who's been good for so long, is famous for just getting rid of the future and just going all in now, and that's what it takes. And they've had a lot of success. That's what it takes nowadays. I don't mind. I think the Colorado Avalanche get a big depth piece of Nicholas Waugh. Like I know. I mean, they've been the best team in the league, but we've seen in the years past, like this team has been scraping for depth using their like 7th round picks and stuff like that. Just trying to find anything to, obviously that's when they get into injury troubles, but when you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. You know what I mean? So getting a depth center, I don't mind it at all. He could play kind of anywhere in that bottom 6. So
Yeah, definitely.
We'll grade this in 1 second, but just back to the Braden Shen, the details are out.
It's
for
Jonathan
that.
Drouin and then Marcus Gidloff.
Just mentioned Drouin,
Drouin's kind of been like a bust for them contract wise.
Yeah.
So like it's like a floater. I guess maybe he pans out more in St. Louis with some more talent like Thomas and Kyrou. Gidloff isn't a prospect I'm crazy high on, so I don't think it's the end of the world there. I don't think it brings it down from what I had earlier, is what I would say.
Yeah. Well, true. Like the 2026 first is unfortunate. That's in there, but it's from Colorado, so it's not really a huge deal. Yeah.
Cool.
So then back to Colorado. There, where would we rank them?
I would say B.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perf.
I have some news from the Maple Leafs. I don't know if you want me to break it or if Katie, you
Go
have it
for
up. I have it that the Leafs have traded Scott Laughton. No return yet.
No return yet, but Scott
return
Laughton's
yet,
been
but
dealt.
Scott Laughton has been dealt.
Interesting.
And no direction of where he's been dealt
Yeah, I was
either.
gonna say.
No, just
No
the
team
straight
on the
tweet
other
is
end.
Leafs traded Scott Laughton. Period. So
Oh, it's Los Angeles apparently.
okay.
Los Angeles, what are you doing?
Dude,
What
that
are
is
you
insane.
doing?
You gotta. Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'll talk about that later. I
Yeah, we'll
guess.
get to that as hopefully more details arise. Also, just to go back to the McMahon one last time, confirmed that it's a second
It's a
and
second and
a fourth.
That spares me a little bit. I'll talk about that more. I'll save a lot of time for the Kraken, to be honest. I'm gonna go in
Okay,
depth.
well, for saving time, we gotta get moving. That brings us to Dallas, Jacob, with you.
Another team that could, honestly, going into the season, they were my Stanley Cup pick, and I think they added a defenseman like Tyler Myers, who is been played for a couple different teams. They get him to give up a 2027 second round pick, is also a 2029 4th round. That's quite in the future. But like this team, their window is also to win right now. You got a guy like Tyler Myers, who I think could be a great playoff addition. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for guys who could play those depth roles. Myers probably plays the penalty kill a lot, kills those key minutes, and shuts down probably some talented players on opposing teams. So obviously not the craziest move like we saw last year with the Mikko Rantanen bomb, but this team is, I think, set up without making any moves to go far in the playoffs. I think Tyler Myers is a perfect complementary defenseman that could play in depth in their top 6. So
Yeah, I would agree. Like, and maybe the one move I would like to see them make is if they could have got Ristolainen, but that didn't materialize, and it's better to get Myers before prices really skyrocketed.
Yes.
So that was a good move.
Yep. All right, where would you rank them?
I just maybe B. Maybe B.
I would agree. We have so much B and C,
Yeah,
but it's
so-
like
but,
no
like,
one
nothing's-
did
yeah,
that great, to be
Exactly.
honest.
But that does move us to a team that sure did a lot with the Minnesota Wild. First things first, the prospect swap basically with Philadelphia. And then they got Michael McCarron, which is some depth, honestly. That's about it, really. And then the Jeff Petrie sure was a move. Like we said, they added Bobby Brink. And then adding Nick Foligno makes me think that he's going to retire. That's kind of the main thing you can get out of that, is that he's going to play with his brother, maybe win a cup, and then retire, which I like that ad. I like Nick Foligno. It's unfortunate for Chicago, honestly, to trade him. And then that move with Florida where they
Jeff Petrie.
Yeah.
Petrie.
No, and the future considerations for Vinny.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
get. I guess they get a Jeff Petrie and future considerations for Vinny Hinostroza in a 7th.
Yeah. So it was like a lot of moves, but really, what did they do? They didn't need to do a ton. They're a good team. But it was a lot of just like, I don't know, moving stuff around probably.
Yeah, I think the whole season as a whole trade wise is a success because
Yeah, for sure.
the Quinn Hughes deal
Yeah.
is just massive. But I will say I hate this actual deadline from them. Like it's good to get. I think like Foligno is absolutely worth future considerations. But McCarron for a second is a terrible price to pay for what he is. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, he's a 4th liner, and giving up a second for a 4th liner, that's just not a good move. And then I don't like the Juracek move in hindsight because they traded a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, and a prospect for him. I think last year or 2 years ago. So in retrospect, like they could have made a way bigger move if they didn't burn those assets on Juracek and then trade him here for Bobby Brink, who I do like, and he's a Minnesota native, so I think that he will stay there long term. But I think that they didn't do a lot and they gave up a decent amount.
Yeah, I agree. I think their use of assets with the second rounder and giving up David Juracek, which is not used very successfully. I think the question of this team has been their center depth for a while, like Ryan Hartman and Joel Eriksson-Ek are their top 2 centers, and they've been. Like Robert Thomas was a name that was floating around there. There's a couple top line centers. Nazem Kadri is a guy who also could play up there. And with Quinn Hughes' contract, he has one more season. Am I correct? After this one,
I believe so. Yes.
Like obviously the whole buzz is that he's going to go play with his brothers over in New Jersey. There's a lot of question marks as if he will sign long term with the Minnesota Wild. That this team is built to probably win. Like I know the Central Division is very like there's a lot of top end talent with the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche that they'll eventually have to play in the playoffs. But I think they missed out on adding a center. I really do. I think they could have got a Robert Thomas or a Nazem Kadri and could have used those assets like that 2nd round pick and a name like David Juracek, who probably had some value even though he hasn't been able to find his footing on the 2 teams he's played for. He's still he was 6th overall like 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, and we ragged on the Rangers for not trading Trocheck. This was one of the teams that they were linked to.
Yes.
I think if they had an extra 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, instead of Juracek and then trading away from McCarron, then they certainly could have done this. And even if it would have been an overpay for Trocheck, like when you're a cup contender and you added Quinn Hughes, I think they could truly actually go for a cup run. And we know how much Bill Guerin loves Trocheck because he was the one that took him on the USA Olympic roster. So I was a little stunned that they didn't do that. And I even with like Quinn Hughes, I don't know if they beat Colorado or Dallas, so I think that they should have just gone all in.
Yeah, like I guess the only really significant add is Bobby Brink. Like they just added a bunch of probably players who are going to play in their bottom 6. Like Bobby Brink maybe could move up to maybe the 2nd line, but they also have like a lot of like they have Vladimir Tarasenko and Matt Zuccarello and Trennan and guys who can kind of like are middle sixers that can kind of play anywhere in that middle 6. And I don't think Bobby Brink really adds anything to this lineup that they don't already have. So
yeah.
So where would you throw him? C, D?
I think just with the missed opportunity, not getting a top 6 center, I think that would have solidified this lineup 10 times more than what they did this deadline. I might be aiming for D.
I would agree with that.
Sounds good.
Not on the acquisitions they made, just on what they could have done with this deadline.
For sure. All right, Clint, Utah.
They made one move, and it was getting Mackenzie Weegar from Calgary. They gave up Oli Mata, an underrated prospect in Jonathan Castagna, and then 3 second-rounders. So it's not like a crazy price to pay for Weegar, for what Weegar is right now. He is in the midst of a very down year, but it's hard to be good on that Calgary blue line, and he's the only really true NHL high-end defenseman there. I guess they just got back White Cloud, who I think is a positive defender, but still. Yeah. He's the far-in one. He was playing in all situations. I am a little nervous about how that contract is going to age, and I think that's why Calgary gave him up without getting back a first-rounder here. But I think right now it's a good ad for them. Weegar had to waive to go there, so it's a positive sign that players are waiving to go to the Mammoth in just their 2nd season in Utah. Because I don't think he would have waived for Arizona if they were still there. No. So that's always a good sign, and they didn't pay too big of a price. And also, I think this isn't an actual deadline edition, but they are getting Cooley back, so I think they are a legitimate playoff team. And as long as they get the first wild card and are staying in the Pacific Division, I could see them winning around. Or not staying in the Pacific Division, but playing a Pacific Division team, I see them winning around, so I would give them a B here.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think Mackenzie Weegar is a guy who's going to play probably first power play. Maybe even pair him up with Sergachev, who is also their top defender. So I don't mind the move. I get what you mean. He's on the older side. Like, I think he was in conversations about the Ottawa Senators potentially picking him up, and I was like, oh, that would be pretty good. But I mean, the Sens do have a boatload of kind of offensive guys. So, but I like this. I think he could kind of take the ropes as the number one offensive defenseman, and we'll see who they pair him up with, because I think that's also important. So
Yeah.
We're thinking B.
Yeah, I would say B.
yeah, I'm good with B. Yeah.
We're very high on Logan Stanley over here at Shuttersport Media, so we'll get back to that soon. But first, we'll head to the Nashville Predators.
Yes. Okay. Nashville. They get rid of Blankenberg. They get rid of Cole Smith, and they get rid of McCarron. Players like Steven Stamkos was up on the waters of maybe making a return back to Tampa or going to a contender, but he decides to stay. Ryan O'Reilly was also a name that was thrown around a little bit. He's almost point per game this year, which at how old he is just fantastic. I think he could have been a great player on a cup contender, which he's been used in the past in trade deals, but not this year. Decides to stay in Nashville as well. Jonathan Marchessault was another name that was kind of thrown around there, but none of those really three big names get thrown around. And I mean, Nashville is obviously kind of in their rebuilding stage, and I think they need to go into a rebuilding stage is what I should say, because when they added those three big pieces about it was two free agencies ago, something like that. I think that was when their window kind of opened up. But the season that came right after that free agency was just so downhill. I don't know if it's a complete rebuild, but this team needs a retool. And I don't know if getting rid of three depth guys really kind of swings that at all. So,
Yeah, I would say like they did well in the moves that they did make. Like getting a second for McCarron is good.
Mhm.
I think getting a third for Cole Smith is fine. But I would have really liked to see them move Ryan O'Reilly.
yes.
And I would have liked to see them move Eric Holla. Like he was a sneaky good
Yes,
guy at the
yes.
Olympics. He was very good. That was the Kraken move I did mention. There was a second one for a split. Like for a couple of minutes, it was reported on the Kraken transaction log that they traded a second and a third to get him. We'll see if that pops back up anywhere because that was taken down. So maybe there is a Holla deal. But I would say it's like a B or a C maybe, because I feel like they could have done more. What they did was fine, but they could have gotten a lot better, I think, for their future.
Yeah, I mean, they pick up a fifth, a third, and a second. Looks like all the draft picks they picked up during this. I think, like, that's assets for sure. Like, picks are picks, but with how high some of these players were going for, I think they could have at least got a first and started really, cranking that retool to a maximum. So,
Yeah.
B or C, what are we thinking?
I'm going to go with C.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with C. Yeah.
Everyone's just so mid and in C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that moves us over to Chicago, who, speaking of mid, they had the one trade with Edmonton, where, honestly, they got rid of a 2028 second, 2027 first, and what?
Opposite.
Oh, sorry, they got, it was written, anyway. They got rid of Colton Dock, Jason Dickinson, and Connor Murphy for Andrew Mangiapane. See, that's not how I would have said that.
Quite the name, yes.
And then obviously the 2027 first and 2028 second. Being able to get draft picks, obviously good for a team that's rebuilding like they are. I don't like them giving up Colton Dock and some of their prospects. They think they have a good prospect pool, so interesting move to not sell people who are on their roster, but sell. Well, I mean they're on the roster, but you know what I mean. Not sell any, but they didn't really have a ton to move, so. Just an interesting deadline that I don't know if propels them any further than they were.
Yeah, I would give them like a B because they made their moves before the market got set.
Yeah.
So they did actually pretty well in them. Like I thought Dickinson for a first taking the Mangiapane salary was a good move when it happened for them. And then Murphy for a second. Like I think if they waited, then I guess they maybe could have gotten more. So maybe you could punish them for that. But I am a fan of them getting those moves done. I would have liked to see them keep Doc.
Yeah.
But I'd still say it's a B.
Yeah, I can agree with a B. Taking on that Mangiapane contract, obviously get a first for Dickinson. Like they recoup some assets. Obviously they have tons of cap room because this team's still obviously in the rebuild, still taking a couple of years, still getting like Frank Nazar is getting some more experience. Oliver Moore is now in the lineup. Connor Bedard obviously is just Connor Bedard getting better and better each and every game. So like this team can afford to take on some bigger contracts that other teams don't want and be able to regain some assets by doing so. So yeah, I don't mind it.
All right, well, time that our chatter Austin Terry has been waiting for. We'll head to Winnipeg, and Clint's going to talk about Logan Stanley.
Yes, so they traded away Logan Stanley. They traded away Luke Shen. I talked about it on the Buffalo side of I said that I liked the Isak Rosén addition for Winnipeg. I think they did really well here. They got a second, and then I would rather have Isak Rosén than a second. So I think that's a good add there instead of prioritizing a second pick. I think he immediately could slot into their top 6 right now. They're a little shallow, and at least be a middle 6 guy. He has more goals in the AHL this season than Chibrikov, Lambert, Jaeger, and Barlow combined, who are 4 of their top prospects. So he's been very good in the AHL this year. I would just throw him up to the NHL right now. I really like that ad. I would say it's a B. You could convince me to put it A. I really like the Isak Rosén ad compared to other depth players that got traded.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this team is another team that had high expectations coming into the year. Obviously, winning the President's Trophy last year. Then all of a sudden, they just kind of fall off a cliff and not able to find their footing after they lose a player like Nikolai Ehlers. I guess what kind of moves the needle, but. Yeah, I don't mind it shipping away kind of their lower tier assets that they don't really need anymore. Obviously, they acquired Shen at last year's trade deadline, or Shen from.
I believe so.
Yeah,
yes.
So I mean, he kind of just a rental, kind of just for the run, didn't really do much. So they are able to afford to ship him away, and I got a couple young prospects. I'll take your word about that Rosén guy.
Yeah.
I mean, from what you've explained, I didn't know much about him, but you've convinced me that he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's pretty damn good. So, okay.
All right, where would you put Winnipeg's deadline then?
We don't have many A's. I'll give him an A. I love Isak Rosén.
Okay.
I'll die on this hill.
Sounds good. All right, and that brings us to round out the Central here with St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, a team, honestly, this might have been the team in the NHL that had the most trade rumors surrounding them because they had big names like Robert Thomas. Obviously, you had the whole situation following Parayko. Justin Falk, as we just mentioned, got traded to the Detroit Red Wings. And then even Jordan Binnington was on the deadline as well. So a lot of buzz around this team, maybe not for positive reasons because they're needing to sell, and this team has been terrible all year long. So, and they have a lot of young talent like Jimmy Snuggerud, Jake Neighbors, Dalibor Dvorsky. I love World Juniors legend. So absolutely. Dylan Holloway's still young too. So there's a lot of promise in this lineup. Logan Mailloux on defense, and they just, although they didn't pull the trigger on many of those trades, they did on the Parayko trade, and that would have been interesting. I think I forgot. Blanking on the return.
It was Murtka and a first, which I thought would be a great return because Murtka, I think, is going to be Colton Parayko in a couple of years. He's going to develop into that.
Bigger guy,
and you get a first. That would have been a good ad for them. I think it's a bad look for St. Louis to have that deal come out. I think they were trying to leverage him to waive his no-move clause because this is now the second time that they've done this. I don't remember, other than the Uyghur trade, which also was reported before he waived, I don't remember any other case where a deal was reported before, where a player had a full no-move clause before he waived it. The only other time was with Torrey Krug a couple years ago for St. Louis when they tried to trade him to Philadelphia. So I think that's a bad look for them there. But I do think it's smart to hold on to Thomas and Kyrou and those guys now. Obviously, there's going to be a high ask when you're trading away players of those caliber. They don't necessarily need to trade them because they have term left. Okay. And if they are going to get max returns, I think those are guys that work better in the off season or at the draft once teams actually have cap space again. Because Thomas and Kyrou both make $8 million. Parayko's at I think 6.5, and so is Binnington. So those are high AAV contracts that are hard to fit into contenders. And you don't want to retain on them because they are so long of deals left. So I think it makes sense to hold them until the offseason and maximize the return then.
Yeah, okay. Do you think, though, that because the market was so high this deadline that they could have potentially got such a good return? And obviously they didn't pull the trigger, so they must have not. But I feel like what we were seeing, and with the top, Robert Thomas was a top name. He was thrown around to a lot of different teams, and I think they could have got a very pretty penny for him.
I think they got screwed once Colorado did the Waugh trade, because once a third liner gets traded for a first-round pick, that devalues first-round picks at the deadline. So then they're obviously going to ask for a lot more. And it was reported the Habs didn't want to include Michael Hage. They were asking for a crazy price from Utah, but it makes sense when you're trading a great player under a great contract to a division rival. You're going to ask a lot. So I think if there was a big package out there, they would have taken it. But it's got to be a kind of knock your socks off offer when you're trading away a top 15 centerman in the league.
Yeah, I agree with that.
it's confirmed that it's Scott Lawton to the Kings for a third round and nothing more.
A third rounder. Ooh, okay.
Okay.
And with that, where are we throwing the Blues?
Well, they didn't. I mean, I'm just gonna say it again. They didn't pull the trigger on any of their big guys. But as Clint mentioned, probably guys that work better when teams have salary cap because a lot of these guys make a lot of money. So, a team that also doesn't have a lot of direction either because they have a lot of good. They're last right now in the Central, but they have a lot of decent names who could, on paper, look like they could be a good team. So, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to regroup my thoughts, but like nothing's really coming to my head right now.
Clint, what do you think?
I would say like B. Like they did. They did really well in the Shen trade, which I don't think we mentioned here. We think they did really well in the Shen trade. So I might even say A because like I don't think they were going to get the crazy package for Thomas right now.
Yes.
I would say B because the optics of the Parayko thing is terrible for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's just a bad look. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even think about the Shen train because we just broke it down, like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So, like, it just, like, completely skipped out of my mind. But they get a player like Jonathan Drouin, who I think his career will slowly but surely sliver away. Like, he's had too many opportunities on too many different teams to kind of regroup anything from what the prospect he once was. And now he was drafted more than 10 years ago. So he's now, and then they get a first rounder too. Like, I think that's a good asset for the St. Louis Blues, especially for, like, Shen, their captain. That's obviously a big loss in the locker room, but it's not like they're going to have any success in the future, like near future, anyways. So I think they can afford to trade him away, and they get a first and a third. So some good assets to recruit back. So I don't mind it. Yeah, I'll agree with Clint. We'll go away. I like that trade just based off the Brandon Shen trade alone. We'll go away.
All right, and then Clint, you've got Vegas Golden Knights here.
Yeah, they're a team that's been kind of pegged as frauds. They aren't necessarily the strongest team. They're first in the Pacific there, but they're 10th in goals for, 20th in goals against. They have been kind of power play merchants. They have the 4th best power play percentage in the league. I think they need to address their defense, not necessarily their D-core, but at being better defensively from forwards, and they did that in Dowd and Cole Smith. They did pay a second, 2/3, and a goaltending prospect to do so. I think I would still pick them as the best team in the Pacific. I think this helped them, but I do think that the amount of picks that they're trading away is going to catch up to them in the future. They also traded for a first and a second for Rasmus Anderson earlier, and he hasn't been as great as you probably hoped for Vegas so far. And like their prospect pool is Trevor Connolly and then a bunch of like shot in the darks. So I think that'll catch up to them in the future, but I think that they are the best team in the Pacific, and I think they solidified that. So I would put them in a B or a C.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the strategy of the Vegas Golden Knights is to not care or even think about the future.
Yeah, screw
and
them
just
picks.
go all in right now. And honestly, if they're able to win another cup here, or the cup is the goal, and if they're able to win another cup here, I don't know. I don't want to say the future doesn't matter because obviously it does. But the overall goal of any organization in the NHL is to win a Stanley Cup. So if they're gonna keep on chugging along, trading away all their picks, I mean, by all do it if it brings a success. Bring in Cole Smith, bring in Nick Dowd, 2 guys I'll definitely play in the bottom 6, probably on that 4th line. But, I mean, if any team understands what it takes to be successful in the playoffs, and because they've been there so much, it's probably the Vegas Golden Knights. Could acquire 2 guys that can shut down a line. That's all they want because their top 6 is pretty solidified. They have Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, Barbashev's really good. Diaforov is really good. Just they have guys who could produce a lot of offense. The main question on the forward court is probably the defense, and I think they got 2 names. Probably won't push the needle a lot, but they're good fillers in the lineup to be successful. So
what are you thinking? Another B here?
Yeah, another B. We're loading up.
Loading B.
Load
Yeah,
up the B.
let's do it.
All right. And that brings us to Anaheim, which, like we said earlier, love the John Carlson trade for them. I think it just adds, like, for where they weren't expecting to be this year, really. Like, I don't think anyone saw them as second in the Pacific, and that's where they are, and they've adjusted accordingly. And I think it'll be good for them to add a veteran, like the veteran, basically, to their blue line. And then also that nothing Strome trade.
Strome for a 7th. Which
for a 7th.
Getting positive value for that is, I think, like actually a good move for them.
I think
like,
they've honestly...
Strome is not very good, no offense, but...
They've won their two trades that they made. They didn't... Honestly, they didn't have to do enough. It's kind of a similar thing to Boston where it's like they didn't... to a more extreme extent, honestly. Like, I don't think they expected to be this high this year, and so they shouldn't go all in for this year because it's not gonna long-term work out for them. And I think just play your cards where you're at now, add a little bit, which they did. And I think John Carlson's good for not only this year, but in the future.
Yeah.
I like to compare this team to the Montreal Canadiens they are the Montreal Canadiens of the Western Conference. Like, they have so many young players. Cutter Gauthier is a 30-goal scorer this year, and just a complete breakout year. He's under 23 years old. Mason McTavish is still young. Beckett Seneca's
Leo
been
Carlson.
Leo Carlson. Oh, he
Seneca's
is the man.
been crazy too this
Seneca's been phenomenal. And then Jackson Lacombe obviously just gets added to the U.S. Olympic team out of nowhere. He's incredibly young. He's definitely the young piece on that D-core. And then they add a guy like John Carlson, who could probably play with like an Olin Zellweger. And then all of a sudden on that right side, you have Trouba and you have Carlson,
And Gudas.
And Gudas, yes. Two former captains of all different teams, and just kind of control the narrative back there. And you'll free up like Minchikov, you free up Zellweger, and you free up Lacombe, young guys who can learn from these their veteran D pairings and kind of free them up to kind of show off their offensive capabilities and control the puck in the pairing. I think this team didn't obviously need to make a big move. They do with John Carlson. But that's just like, he's a guy who will probably get a letter on this team just because of what he brings to the lineup. And with such a young core, that's kind of what they need. And it's, well, Ryan Strome gets traded away. He wore the A. We'll see if it just goes, maybe it just goes straight to John Carlson. Who knows? So,
yeah, and I think also with that, that move, Ryan Strome is under the cap for $5 million next year, and getting off the books of that, I think, increases their odds of extending Carlson for the next year.
Yes.
So this is a great deadline.
I really like this deadline for them. We don't have anyone in S. There could be an argument made there. It's definitely at least an A for me.
If we want to throw him in S, I'm fine with that because they added one of the best players that got traded at the
we
deadline.
eventually got to throw a team in S.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I'm saying.
And for now, it can be the Anaheim Ducks, which is so crazy. Like, I don't think anyone really, like, obviously they're a talent pool and they're young. Talent pool is incredible, but I don't think anyone saw this happening this soon for them this year. Especially, like, even, like, taking Beckett Seneca was a bit of a shock, taking him third, and
it's worked out.
It's worked out. They were proven correct.
Yeah,
like,
scouting pool knew something, I guess.
So then, while we still have time on the clock, we'll head to Seattle.
Let's go to Seattle. I have a lot to say here. I was super nervous it was going to be worse. Like the reports of like Lawton and all these guys, and with the prices people were paying, I was super nervous we were going to overpay. I hate to say this because I do very much like Bobby McMann as a player. I think he's a great depth scorer. He's a great contributor. He brings a lot of speed. He plays with physicality. He can chip it on the score sheet. I like him a lot. I don't like his fit in Seattle. Like I really don't think that's what we needed. The penalty kill for the Kraken is near the bottom of the league. Like our penalty kill is terrible. It's let's check exactly what it is. It's like bottom 5 in penalty kill. It is atrocious.
Yeah.
And I think if we were going to trade for a Leaf, Lawton would have been the better ad. The Kraken had the second worst penalty kill at 72.3%. Like, that's just terrible. So that was, if we're going to make a move to address something, it should have been that. Or we should have made a swing on a big name target. Like, I think they were in on Thomas. They reportedly were in on Kyrou in the offseason. I would have loved if they did that, even if they're overpaying. I'm glad that they kept their premium assets. They have Shane Wright. They have Jake O'Brien. They have 2 firsts from Tampa Bay. They still have another first or an extra second rounder next year, so they can make a big splash in the offseason. But I'm not a big fan of the McMahon fit. Like, I don't know where they play him. Down the left wing, they have McCann, Schwartz. Catton has looked better of late. And the fourth line, Ben Myers, Freddie Gaudreau, and Jacob Melanson has been one of our brighter spots of late. I know those aren't necessarily the biggest names, but actually watching them, they've been very good for us lately. We kept Tolvanen, we extended Eberle, and we have Kakko as well. So, like, I don't know which winger spot he gets. And you can't necessarily send Catton down because that's sending him to Spokane, and it's post-trade deadline, and Spokane sold in the WHL.
Yeah.
So it's just a very perplexing trade. At least with Lawton, he could have killed penalties. I'm trying to be optimistic here. Only giving up a second and a fourth and not touching our prospect pool. It's not the end of the world. But I would say this is like a C deadline.
Yeah. And adding someone like Bobby McMahon, just looking at your guy, the Seattle Krakens, the forward core, it just seems like you guys have a lot of middle sixers. Like
we have a million middle sixers. That's all we have.
Like, I agree when you said that. I think this team, like, if they really want to go to the next level, they sit third right now in the Pacific. They need to make a big move. Like, Matty Beniers is a fantastic player. But do you think he would be is he a number 1 center on a?
I think he is. Like, if you look at, or maybe not on a cup contender right now.
But a good
I
team
think
in the NHL.
I think he could be a 1C on a cup contender if your 2C is really good. And I have a lot of faith in Shane Wright. I believe in him a lot. Our management doesn't. So that unfortunately sucks for me. But I think if you compare Beniers to other players that were drafted in that spot, his production isn't the greatest. But you also have to think about the talent he's given.
Yeah.
Like our leading scorer right now is Jordan Eberle, who's 35. Like that's like at some point you have to give him some top talent to play with. Like if you think about like Slavkovsky and those guys, they're playing with Caulfield, they're playing with Suzuki.
Yes.
And he's never been put in a situation with a lot of talent around him. Like he's not a Celebrini level offensive talent or anything like that. But I think he's better than he gets credit for, and he is elite defensively. So I think that this extension of the deadline, it's good to keep their premium assets, and they better actually get a star in the offseason and not maintain status quo, or I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely a winger. It's maybe a star winger. You think maybe to complement Matty Beniers? Jordan Eberle just signed 2 more years for $5.5 million.
My boldest take, I'll throw it out here now. I think that Jason Robertson is a Seattle Kraken next year.
Wow.
That's my prediction. That would be my guess.
I agree with you. I think that would finally make this team a contender to go potentially deep in the playoffs. That's what you guys are missing. They have a boatload of middle six players, and yes, that's fine. But you like obviously it's great for the depth, but it doesn't fill up that top line.
Exactly.
Like you need, especially coming to the playoffs, you have to have a line that can control the narrative and even flip the narrative at any point in the game. And I don't think Seattle has that right now.
Definitely do not have that.
All right. You said C, Clint? Is that?
Yeah, I'll throw it in C.
All right. Them and everyone else.
Yeah, half the league in C.
All right. That brings us to the Edmonton Oilers.
Well, it's another trade deadline where the Oilers find themselves kind of on the cusp of the playoffs, but have Stanley Cup aspirations, and they bring in a bunch of kind of different names that don't really change like a crazy amount about the lineup, but kind of just fill in that middle to bottom six. They bring in Jason Dickinson, who comes from a Chicago team where he put up, I think we could put up decent numbers. Colin Dock, a bit of a younger guy, maybe some offense, maybe some upside with him as well. And then Connor Murphy on the decor, kind of just probably play those bottom pairing minutes. They give out a first, as they normally do. They always seem to just trade away their graphics. They have to, because they have to win the cup soon, or else their door is going to close. A second, and Andrew Mangiapane is also gone. Clint, I'll ask you this. They obviously get some assets in Dickinson, Dock, and Murphy. Does that change anything about this year compared to what we see in years prior?
I think that these are under the radar targets. I don't think they're getting the credit they deserve. Going into the deadline, Oilers fans were complaining like, oh, we suck at defense. We're bad at defense. We can't do that. And then when they trade for Jason Dickinson, who's actually a very good defensive center, and trade for Connor Murphy, who's a very good shutdown defenseman, and they get upset about like paying too much or these aren't star names. I think these are very under the radar targets. They have a lot of puck movers on the blue line. I like the Murphy ad there. And then Dickinson also will really help their penalty kill. I talked about Seattle sucking at it. Edmonton's sixth worst in penalty kill right now in the league. And I think that Dickinson is a playoff style penalty killer that they could use. Murphy will help that as well. It really depends on if they can play better in front of Jari, because he hasn't been great so far. In Edmonton, he's been arguably worse than Skinner. But I think that I have more faith in Jari, and they needed to reset anyways. Like you just can't run it back with Skinner again. Yeah. And I think that improving the defense in front of him should help him perform a little bit better come playoff time. So I like these ads, and I think that they're still a contender in the West.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's obvious that offense isn't the question mark here.
Yeah.
And this lineup is definitely the defensive end. So Jason Dickinson, you just hope kind of play that third line role and maybe get a line that can match up, be a good matchup line, because obviously you want to save the McDavid and the Draisaitl line to be good matchups against other teams, maybe third or second line. So you kind of want to find a line that can match up maybe against another team's top line that frees up the McDavid to get a good matchup against the opposing team, because this team is, mind you, are they in a playoff? I think
they
are.
They passed Seattle for the third
spot. Okay. So obviously, like I don't want to say they're going to completely make the playoffs, but you expect them to just based on the last 2 years. But this team is obviously looking towards the playoffs, and I agree. I think Jason Dickinson, although he hasn't had a look in the playoffs recently, I think he could be a good defensive role. And Connor Murphy, depending on his pairing right now, it looks like maybe potentially Jake Wallman. Wallman obviously an offensive guy. Murphy just have to be a stable rock back there to kind of maybe make up for Wallman's mistakes and move the puck to him. So
And lastly, I really like the Doc throw-in for them.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
he's
do
the
too.
highest potential guy, but he's 6'4", plays with a lot of speed. That's a guy that could be good come playoff
Yes.
time. And the Oilers don't have necessarily a great young core or prospect pool, so he'd probably be in the top 4 or 5 names for them. So I like that addition.
I like it for them. This is the kind of deadline that you'd expect out of Edmonton. Like obviously, like you were saying, they're not adding star power like other teams would be. Like, they're not going out to get that goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
They have the top line. And so they just need to add those kind of depth guys, especially like you were saying in the defensive end. And so I think it makes sense for them. I don't know if it's going to be the factor that wins them the cup, but it makes sense for where they're at right now. And so what? Like,
I'd say
B.
I'd say B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I would almost move it up to A because I think that they paid, like, getting Murphy for a second is better
Yeah.
than what
Just
other teams paid.
trade-wise,
And like
yeah.
they bought theirs before the market
Sure.
reset. So I would say A, to be honest.
Okay.
All right.
Oops.
All right. That brings us to San Jose, which is also just a very interesting spot right now with what's happening.
Oh,
Obviously,
yes.
a very bright
Oh,
future.
yes.
Future's teal and all that, but like, just they're at an interesting spot right now. And all they did really was trade for an AHL guy for an AHL guy. Jet Wu for Jack Thompson. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they can go all in. As
Yeah.
you said, the future, keyword
Yeah.
future is teal, not the current. So, like, this team is just, like, didn't need to make any moves. They have the core, obviously, Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, who is just fantastic. Michael Misa, tons of upside. William Eklund still growing. This team has the assets they already need, and I don't think they needed to do much, and they didn't. So, I mean, they're on the cusp of the playoffs right now too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they're
like,
chasing my
crazy.
Kraken down. I'm glad they didn't do too much. So
I think it would have been a mistake though if they maybe gained another asset or two,
For sure.
maybe to push them into a playoff spot, because they don't need to make the playoffs this year. They're going to make the playoffs for plenty of times in the next decade. So, like, now here in 2026, like, the fact that they're even in the conversation for making the
Yeah.
playoffs, I think is a positive. So,
Especially after last year. Like, that was a pretty quick turnaround from winning virtually no games last year to even being in a conversation this year.
yeah, the only ads I would have liked to see them make, or I would have thought were great ads, if they targeted Braden Schneider out of New York, or Simone Nemec, whose name was thrown out there. But those are still guys that they could get in the offseason because
Yeah.
they still have control left. So
Simone Nemec would have been very interesting. Obviously, a younger guy, still hasn't really clicked a whole lot in New Jersey, but he would fit in pretty nice with this with this timeline of the San Jose Sharks team. I just maybe wondering what they'd have to give up to get him, but I don't know. That would have been interesting. Yeah, I think if they were going to add anywhere, it'd be the decor. So I
Yeah.
can agree with you on that, especially on that right side.
Where do you throw this absolute nothing of a deadline?
like B, I don't know. They're a team
Yeah.
that's good that you did.
I think it's
nothing,
good
you
that
know
they
what I
did
mean?
nothing. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Clint.
LA Kings. I really liked their first move of selling off Perry for a second and their other move of selling off Fogle for a second. I think those are both good pieces of work there by Ken Holland, which I don't think I would ever say in my life. But I don't get the point of then trading for Scott Lawton. Like, that makes no sense. Like, if you're selling Perry and you're selling Fogle, like, what are you doing getting Lawton back? But I would say overall, it's like, I'll give them a B because I think they did well in their two selling moves, and I think they got very unlucky. Like, they would have gone in more if Fiala didn't get hurt, and you just can't control that, like a freak injury at the Olympics there. So I won't fault them for that, and I'll give them a little bit of a saving grace here, I guess, and give them a B.
And do you think this team maybe feels like it has to make a push for the playoffs and maybe, I don't want to say go all in just a tad bit because it is Anze Kopitar's final season in the NHL?
I think they thought so before Fiala went down, but once Fiala went down, they just accepted it. Like, we're not winning the cup here. You know what I mean? So
I mean, and they kind of had this, especially after acquiring a huge name like Artemi Panarin. That you just like, you can't afford you can't go complete rebuild mode. You can't, because he's way too big of a contract, way too big of a name to do that. But I'm interested to see where their offseason will take them. I think that will be
they're
very
a team
interesting.
to watch.
Yes.
They're one of the most exciting teams to watch this offseason.
Remember 2 years ago when we said that about the Nashville Predators, and then they've done nothing since?
Yeah. Oh, Preds, man.
That
Come
was
on.
things were looking so bright in that, and then it was like, man,
Yeah.
yeah, crazy times.
Such an interesting team. I think it's crazy to think about.
All right, another interesting team in a very interesting spot: Calgary Flames.
Yeah, the Flames are currently, so my roommate is a diehard Flames fan, and he is completely on the Gavin McKenna train. So
Okay.
they are obviously full tank mode, and they get rid of their best defenseman, Mackenzie Weegar, and they also got rid of, obviously, Rasmus Anderson earlier on, just about a month ago. I mean, they get a decent prospect in Jonathan Castagna, who I believe was just around top 10 of the prospect pool of Utah's. I believe he was a third rounder, 70th overall. They get a second, and they get 3 seconds, which I actually think is that's very nice, especially since I think they're going to be decently, I don't want to say high seconds, but between mid-range into early on in the second round. I think they have 5 or 4 draft picks in the first 50 picks of this upcoming draft or something like that.
I think they
something
have
insane.
2 firsts and 3 seconds. Or
Yeah, that's
something
5
like that.
draft picks in the first 50 picks of this upcoming draft. That's a lot of assets, and a lot of picks to make. I wonder if maybe they do kind of shift around their picks, maybe for future picks, because that's a lot for the scouting staff to do. Especially, you got to take a look at the depth of this upcoming draft as well. But I mean, the Flames are in perfect rebuild mode, and they got rid of their star defenseman for a good return. So I don't mind it. Yeah, and Olimata is just kind of a pickup from Utah, getting him off. He's a veteran defenseman. He's not going to do much. He's kind of just filling a roster spot on the Flames. So
yeah, they actually it's 2 firsts and 4 seconds.
4 seconds, so
and then
6
and
picks.
2/3.
Insane.
Oh my God.
This is I think the Castagna ad. I know we don't have too much time left, so I'll kind of go through this quick. I think it's a very underrated ad. He was a 3rd rounder in 2023, but he's been very, very good on a not great Cornell team, over a point per game. I know a scouting public scout that I'm very. I have a lot of faith in NHL Foley. He's high on him, so I like that ad. And I think the 2 second rounders, or the 3 second rounders they get, puts them in a very interesting spot where they could get both of the Ruck twins, which maybe I'm thinking ahead in the NHL draft here, but I think that's where those guys are going to go, and I think they could solidify that, and I would love to see them get some Western Canada guys in the draft. And they have been good at drafting the second round. I really like what they've done with Muse and Battaglia. So I like their chances here to hit on those picks.
Okay.
With that, what is it, a B for them, or?
I would push it to A, to be honest.
Really?
I like them getting out from Uyghur.
Yeah. I think the returns are good enough
Yeah.
to maybe push them over to an A, yeah.
Sounds good. And that brings us to our final team here, Clint.
Vancouver. I'll do this pretty quick. We talked about it on the Dallas end. I think getting out of Myers for a second rounder is just good value. A second and a fourth is good value there. The Thompson for Wu swap. I think Thompson probably has a higher ceiling than Wu. So I kind of like that ad. They got a second, a third for Garland, which I think Garland's a good player right now, but they're entering what appears to be a full nuclear rebuild. So I think that contract's going to age poorly at the end, and getting away from it now is probably smart. And then they also made a very small move trading Lucas Reichel for a 6th rounder. Overall, I would say that they did well. I didn't do exceptional in any of their deals, so I'd give them just a solid B.
Yeah, I mean, this team's obviously another dumpster fire. They're going completely into rebuild mode, so there's not much to say. Obviously, they traded their captain earlier on the season, which is the big trade for them. Elias Pettersson's name was hovering on a little bit. They decided to keep him because his contract's pretty high, although if he does return to form, it's worth probably every single dollar of that contract, but the likeliness is probably lower than a lot of people hope. But yeah, I think it's fine what they did. I mean, I'm interested to see obviously what the future holds of this team, because they're hoping for a very lucky lottery this upcoming draft. So
yeah,
All right. What do you? Where's
we'll
the
put
final
it B.
B
I'll just let B.
with everyone else? Okay. Looking at, I'll turn this so you all can see, I guess. Looking at our final tier list here, anyone we'd move? Are we still with the Leafs where they are, even after the Lawton trade?
I think they didn't do as good in the McMahon, and they didn't do as good in the Lawton deal. I would maybe move them to the top of B.
Okay.
Okay.
And Ducks are our only S. I don't hate it.
Oh, I'm just thinking about Buffalo.
Yeah.
I think I really loved how they kind of just went all in to try to get themselves over the edge. This team has been so mid for so long, and I think especially someone like Logan Stanley. Yeah, he went to Buffalo. Yeah, he just seems like a guy who's perfect for a playoff run. And I don't know, that'd be a team maybe for me. I'm just thinking
if there was one team we'd move up, I feel like, just out of the fact that they needed to do it and they did it. But
I'm gonna hard push back because I do think they gave up a little bit for some depth defensemen.
Okay.
I'm not giving them an S for that in my opinion.
I'm fine with Ducks.
I think
being our
A is
only,
already a little high.
Yeah. I like Ducks being our only S. I'm fine with that. Is that the final? Are we happy with the final?
I think that's it.
It looks good to me.
That's
yeah.
it. All right. Well, that has been our NHL Trade Deadline roundup and a little bit of breaking news here and there. Thanks again to our special guest, Jacob Ewing, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This was a blast. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, be sure to follow us on socials, X, IG, TikTok, YouTube. Subscribe here. Subscribe on Twitch. Follow us to be notified. We're trying to do some more live streams like this. We'll have some playoff stuff coming, some draft stuff eventually. So if you've enjoyed your time here, follow us. And be sure to follow everyone on their own socials. Everyone's tagged in pretty much everything. And that's about it for us, as we have spent 2 hours talking about hockey and are out of time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks for joining.